Welcome to another GSL round of 8 group. In this group, we do have Reynor, Classic, Maru, and GuMiHo. So obviously we're going to be casting a ZVP first for the first preliminary match with the Foreigner as well. In the top right, we do have Reynor, and in the bottom left, it is Classic. So, this is, I don't know, me, classic matchup. Yeah, get that out of the way. But it's not so much classic as it happens all the time, as it is just that I suppose they tend to have fireworks when they meet. I did reference Reynor's GSL run in a previous year, many years ago at this point actually, in which he had a really like insanely close game. Versus Classic, actually. And that's what I think led him into the round of 16, I believe, back in the day. So, at the time, that was still like a real achievement for foreigners. It was before, I think we had a drop-off of players, and it was before we had a drop-off of the actual tournament size. Obviously, we'd gotten away with GSL Code A a very long time ago, but, you know, from that point on, it was a pretty stable size up until probably, like 2 or 3 years ago. And then it got reduced even smaller, and then this year is even smaller. So they're automatically into the round of 8, actually, if they perform very well in their GSL qualifier, which I believe is the case for Classic here. And then Reynor did play in the round of 12. We cast that. He did look good. Everyone's always questioning, you know, what Reynor's performance is going to be like, because one, he's one of the most interesting characters in the scene, honestly. And then two, you know, he does have these gaps of playing StarCraft, seemingly at the very least. He does stream, and he streams a lot of League of Legends. And then he also has had some bad times. You know, I know there's a fancier word for that, but I can't think right now. He's had some lows as well as some highs. So there can be a question of what he's doing in the off-season. And it seems like he's good enough, obviously, to get to the next round of GSL for him. But Classic has been a difficult point for him, as well as Hero, who was also in this group, by the way. So, versus PROTOSS, I mean, I think there's been times where he's been better at it than worse, and kind of vice versa, I suppose. Right now, we do have the caveat that the actual matchup is not particularly well liked by Zerg right now. This is not uncommon in the history of StarCraft, by the way, but it seems like almost every Zerg is in agreement that, you know, you're just going to all in and get this over with. I say almost every Zerg because we did have Rogue, for instance, play like a totally fine macro game in his round of 12, and then we've also had the likes of Shin. Both these guys typically aggressive players too. Shin was actually totally on the Hive lurker train, so not everyone is all-inning, but I know Solar did, and Solar's usually a macro guy, and Reynor did in his round of 12, and in whatever Open Cups he's actually been participating in. On the other side, obviously, we have Classic, totally normal ZVP guys. We got the double Oracle opener so far, maybe triple Oracle, a little Adept pressure. But Classic, you know, he has been on the verge of being the best PROTOSS. It feels like for a long time. I mean, there probably is an argument to be made that he was the best PROTOSS at one point. I am not enough of a Classic fan to remember that exactly, if I'm being real with you. But it's always like, okay, is he the next coming of PROTOSS? And that was a particularly strong sentiment, actually 3 to 2 years ago, when he was showing some novel ideas in ZVT, as well as just having some rock-solid ZVP and ZVZ. So I do believe that he is favored here. I haven't checked their actual stats, and I'm afraid to get spoiled. But, yeah, I think Classic is favored. I think Reynor's going to have a tough time. Reynor does stream League. He's actually very good at League. He's in, I think, because, like, you know, ranks in League are different. I think he's in the second highest rank. But it's not like being in Masters and StarCraft 2, you know, which would be nowhere near, like, really good, actually. Sorry to anyone whose ambition is to be that. But it's like, it's even higher. It's even lower percentages. I don't know. But anyway, he's actually very good. And I think he had some aspirations of maybe trying to be pro, but it is such a that's a oversaturated market, right? There's a ton of people who want to be League of Legends pros. Anyway, this is a good number of adepts. This is not an adept build, though, and unfortunately, it doesn't need to be an adept resonating glaives build to still cause some trouble. Yeah, I'm not sure about that shade, actually. Yeah, you know, it's not close to the drones, so that already makes it a less than ideal shade. And then second of all, it was into a good amount of Lings. Now, obviously, Classic technically won the battle against the Lings and is able to find at least a couple of drones, but also taking damage back at home means that the Adepts really were not successful. And in terms of pure trade value, I'm not sure that was the case either. Yeah, only 26 Lings died for a total of 8 Adepts. No, that wasn't it. That was not it. I think he was just so excited, perhaps, of getting past this potential wall, which... That wouldn't even be a wall, would it? I mean, the creep tumor is blocking, but... Anyway, he's so, you know, happy to actually get into natural, I suppose. But that's a bit of an unfortunate start for Classic. Good start for Reynor. We did go up to only double Oracle, by the way. It's kind of just noteworthy because we are getting that Blink at a decent time with +1 as well. We are getting that Forge. You know, we could have a little bit of a Stalker move out with 2 Oracles worth of energy. They do protect the Stalkers to a certain degree, particularly against Lings, as they can help out with their Pulsar Beam, as well as the Stasis Traps. Okay, this is something very important that Classic needs to scout. Where is it? Okay, in the natural. All right, in the natural, kind of away from where the Oracle would typically try and zip the drones, is the Spire. That is a bit dangerous. Classic has 2 ways of seeing this. You can either see the combined total of gases taken very quickly, or he could literally see the Spire. I mean, I guess there's some argument that there's some amount of wondering why the army isn't bigger either, if he could actually glimpse the entire army. But then, you know, maybe that's because they've actually just been super greedy. The Oracle might have also noticed that the 4th base, I mean, it wasn't saturated particularly quickly. You know, like, this is actually a pretty fast Spire, right? This is not a Spire that's kind of almost transitioning away from a good number of roaches that are already made, which I think was what we typically see. This is a real Ling Spire play. And so what usually would also be a real reveal is 8 gases. Obviously weren't taken up until just now, and in fact it's only 7. So yeah, it's a bit different. And while Classic's not scouting any of the signs anyway, I mean, he's actually literally not scouted the 4th hatch, so that's a little awkward. Lings that into the main and natural, further increasing the chances that Classic is just simply not thinking about mutas. The more that Lings show themselves, the more possible it is that Classic is like, why is it only Lings? Why is it only Lings? Why is it only Lings? But when you're under also a lot of pressure, it is so easy to get locked in on dealing with the pressure, recovering whatever damage they did, and then not scouting, not thinking about what could be on the way. 12 mutas are on the way, but we are not stopping at mutas, just going all mutas all the time. Could it have been a good move? Perhaps. But we're not going to do that. I mean, Classic is already almost set up on 4 bases, and mutas, they probably wouldn't do all that much damage, especially as Reynor is not going for a big swell of ground army as well to kind of do like a 1-2. So I think this is the preferred method. Archon plus a couple Stalkers are warped into the main, or recalled into the main. A cannon was already produced, I think maybe just in cases, or perhaps because the Lings are so annoying. But Reynor, despite not having really the biggest army, he still does have technically more. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, on the High Templar side. Oh my god. Woo! Classic. Oh, he's having a hell of a time right now. +1 Lings jumping on top of the army he had left behind. Oracles in the midst of the map, not prepared to help out that Nexus. And 29 probes went down alongside the 4th base. This is about as perfect as you could hope for, I feel like. This is so much damage. Classic, you know, he was not building a terribly big army. Just meaning that he wouldn't have a lot of army to spread around in the case of multi-pronged attacks. And the surprise element obviously means that you're kind of last-second responding as opposed to already being prepared, so you don't have the Archons already helping out the man or the Stalkers, and the Archons stay at home, right? Because you can think of things ahead of time. Now you just got to respond. Now, Reynor does still have to be careful. This has seemed really, really good for Reynor, but Classic did still have some cash in his pocket to build up a kind of scary army. I mean, Reynor did build Roach Ravager, but that is still a basic unit. Upgrades basically even at this point. Mutas might not be able to help out too much with the Archons there. Storms have already been used, however. That's all of them. 4th base did go down, but the 5th is on the way on this half gold. And I think Reynor is okay with that sacrifice, considering that he did kill his opponent's 4th base alongside all of those probes. And Classic is going to have to deal with the actual army as well. Kind of hounding his heels right now. I think if he stands and fights around a shield battery, this would be okay. Although those 2 Archons get caught. Oh, that is what Reynor was looking for before he disengaged. Also, with the distraction, he goes into the mutas. There's a good amount of stack defense at this 3rd base, so it's not the worst thing, but it's just more and more that Classic can't really get settled, and the more that he can't get settled, the more that Reynor is probably macroing bigger and better things behind this, getting his base back up, getting his killed base back up, as well as getting to additional technology, something scarier than perhaps plain old Ling Roach Ravager. The Lings do have +2 melee now, and they're going to get to Adrenal Glands too, but the case is a Classic could get up to, let's say, 6 Archons and a generally decent sized army. Those Lings are going to have trouble to actually get those perfect surrounds. They're going to have trouble against something with Splash. The Lings don't hold forever in a mano-a-mano fight. And so that would be the hope, maybe, if Classic is like, okay, well, maybe Reynor will over-dedicate. But when you start putting in Ultras, and you have not gotten any Immortals, and yes, your Archons did die, we're not going to be seeing the Legacy of the Void cinematic anytime soon. Oh, yeah, Classic must know that he is in a lot of trouble. The scouting has been, well, frankly abysmal. I gotta use a harsh word here because this all started with a complete lack of scouting. And I think it's a very understandable lack of scouting because Reynor was doing a lot of great things with his Lings. The Lings really tripped up what can be a very passive, normal game where the Oracles are like, I have some free time, let's go and scout. And this just made it a little more complicated. But it's ultimately what is going to cost Classic this game. If he indeed does lose it, there is still the chance that a perfect 200-200 PROTOSS army wins the game. It's getting increasingly less likely, but there's still a chance. Classic is trying to just prepare the transition for what he does seem to know is going to be Ultras, even though, again, he has not scouted anything in so long. I know. Oh, there they are. There they are. But the 2 Robos are pretty late. The Ultras do not really appreciate going into chokes, to be fair, but they did just cleave, I believe, almost half the High Templars. Oh, no, those are like their... I could have sworn I saw some High Templars die. They might have died to friendly fire or something. I swear to God he had more High Templars. Maybe he decisively chose to make them into Archons, and I just missed the Storms that he expelled before that. Yeah, those 3 are from the earlier Ling run by. Anyway, still not a great army. I was talking about that perfect PROTOSS army. That ain't it. Reynor is going to beef up his army as well by continuing to sacrifice these lower level roaches. Not as important anymore. Adding on Ultras, adding on upgrades, and then also adding on Spellcasters. We did have some Infestors on the way. Classic is not willing to give up, but this has been a super ugly game from him. In total, 82 probes have died. And there's that Fungal, allowing the Ultras to give a big ol' hug. Hug him. Upgrade's not as good as a PROTOSS player would generally want. You really want to expedite that +3. Still not here yet. 2 Immortals are on the way, but they're taking their sweet time. Reynor is still maxed out, having even grabbed yet another base that he can transfer the drones to. This is very clearly Reynor's game, and Classic kind of has to chalk this one up to bit of a warm-up, perhaps. Like the punch came hard and fast. The Lings getting into his base, the Lings getting this around on the Adepts, the Lings. They started this game early in Reynor's favor, and the execution on the plan was damn near perfect. Otherwise, you did kind of do what you practiced, probably, versus your practice opponents or versus AI. Which is absolutely not guaranteed, but in this case, it really did look like it played out that way. So Reynor takes game number 1. Hope you guys enjoy the new overlay, by the way, for those who haven't quite noticed. It's the better overlay. Although I still love Game Heart the most, I do agree that the bigger size of things is nice. But it's the Ali mod? Ali mod, yeah. that also includes the numbers, which is really just my main gripe with Pro 2020. Anyway, we're on ley lines. Bottom left Reynor, top right Classic. Classic can play a better game than that. 100%. But I guess it's all started with the Adepts. Those Adepts, they don't necessarily make or break the game. And I don't think they really did in the last game. But it was a sign of things to come, apparently. Now that we've watched the whole game unfold. That was a sign of things to come. The Lings were absolute beasts in that last game. Reynor using them extremely well. To defend, to aggress, to run by, harass. Making sure that Classic never really got his bearings so that he had the time to collect his thoughts and say, okay, well, what could be behind this? As, I mean, kind of the most dangerous thing might be the Spire. You could certainly argue that's not the case. Like, the most dangerous thing could be maybe an all-in, because he had so little scouting. He really did. There could have been 200 supply of roaches trying to max out behind all that Ling pressure. For all that Classic knew. But Spire is definitely one of those things that just clocks you on the chin more than anything else. Even a surprise number of roaches where you're like, oh, he's just going to defend and macro. Oh my god, he has so many roaches. Okay, quick, let's respond. That is a little more manageable sometimes. Just because maybe they're not quite ready to go. They don't have all the Ravagers filled out, but they show their hand. So you're like, okay, now we got to respond. Thankfully, I built a cautionary shield battery at my 4th base, and I can kind of use this choke to my advantage, and maybe I can buy some time. And, you know, the storms will scare them off initially, and then I need to really get going on the production. Mutas just aren't easy to handle. They don't come in from, well, they come in from one angle, but they don't stay at one angle. They attack every single base. They find all of your lackluster defenses in all of your bases, not just one. And obviously, the power of the PROTOSS army being together in more of that death ball state has to make a choice, has to separate. And that can lead to devastating consequences, like we saw. It separates, and then suddenly all those High Templars get surrounded by the Lings, sharking around for just that opportunity. And if it wasn't the High Templars, it could have still been 2 Archons that died to it. It could have still been 6 Stalkers that died to it. And Classic was not quite prepared to take the economic damage and the army damage that he did and still be okay, despite getting up to 4 bases, which also got killed. So, yeah, very ugly game for Classic. It can be a lot better, and I think it will be a lot better in this game. He's going to be probably so much more on point with the scouting, and he's probably not going to bother with that Adept attack. There may be an argument that the Adepts could have surprised Reynor. Like, the number of Lings would not have been sufficient if the Adepts were in this little choke here, for instance. If they had body blocked the ramp. You know, they were not fully surrounded, partially surrounded, but still away from the drones, no secondary threat with the Adepts. And just from the get-go, the Lings didn't even have to go and respond to them. They ran into the Adepts. So, yeah, it's possible he does it. I personally wouldn't like it, but what do I know? What does Classic care about what I like? But I think his kind of normal macro game that he seemingly wanted to do anyway, he wanted to get up to a fairly fast 4th base economy and then start working on a bigger, more solid, direct push rather than any type of maybe cleverness with the Blink Stalkers and the micro potential there. Like, I think he does that without the Adept pressure. Then maybe having the Adepts back at home to stop any Ling pressure means that his Oracles can be a little more free to go across the map and do that appropriate scouting, which they missed in the last game. And by the way, all of Reynor's harassment also gave him a lot of scouting, right? So he knew kind of what he could get away with. And if you stop all of that, it really evens the playing field. Even though Classic wasn't dead early on in that game, or maybe even like the mid game, even with the first muta attack, maybe you could say that there was still definitely a chance to recover. The pace had been set, and it was definitely Classic on the back foot. Reynor is probably not going to go for a Spire again. That might be a little too on the nose. Blink +1 is on the way again for Classic, so it does seem like he's doing pretty much the exact same build, just without those extra Adepts, and he's keeping the Adepts at home, so the Oracles can then go and harass. You know, you can bring the Adepts and the Oracles, but then you do have your 3rd base potentially under pressure. You can bring the Adepts but not the Oracles, but then the Adepts obviously could be surrounded. And in this case, this is kind of the most guaranteed way, I suppose, to, you know, as long as they haven't made a ton of lings or any early roaches you didn't see, it's probably the safest way to try and get that scouting, is obviously the oracles can fly through more reliably than the adepts can. And it is just drone right now for Reynor. The lair is not yet done anyway. He is once again going for +1 melee, finding a lot of effectiveness in these lings. That Reynor has seemed to enjoy ling-heavy builds and metas when it was the most appropriate thing to do versus PROTOSS. I feel like he just enjoyed that. And we do, as far as the, you know, the player with the unit thing, I think we do kind of have Reynor and lings in our brain, same that you would have, well, for Brood War. It was a lot more common of a thing, but in Brood War it was like Fantasy and Vultures, Slayer's Boxer and Dropships, you know. So Reynor is pretty good with them. He's going to go in a Ling Hydra this game. Classic, without any pressure thus far in this game, is actually going to decide to pressure with the Stalkers. This is an option that he could have done last game. I think he just chose not to, and then everything went to shit, if I remember correctly, the timeline there. But you do have these oracles to try and halt any advancement from Reynor's defenses. So Reynor is not foolish enough to believe that he's guaranteed to surround on these Stalkers. The micro has been done a million times over here. But he does know that there's a chance that the lings can hold on their own, particularly until these Hydras come out, and they're about out. So Reynor really doesn't have to hold it very long at all. Classic only really looking for little bits and pieces here. This is not a dedication to a Stalker push. And the lings on the opposite side of the map for Reynor will basically confirm that. They'll see some units warped in back at home, and they'll see the 4th Nexus on the way. So yeah, no proxy gateway that was hidden away, and suddenly there's just so many more Stalkers than you predicted. And Reynor is going to be quite comfortable on 4 bases, going up to 5, about 76, 75, there we go, 75 drones. He's got the Ling Hydra. He is not all-inning with it. Infestation Pit is on the way. The Hydra upgrade speed is on the way as well, as Storm finishes, however, so that's kind of that's a great response, storming the Ling Hydra. I don't think Reynor's going to find any mobility with this army. With the defenses already set up and not with Storm already gotten. Charge is also on the way, +2 as well. Reynor not going to find much success in the mid-game. And Classic, well, finding a lot of success so far. I mean, just as far as defending and macroing. But the High Templars are on the way to turn into Archons, and a War Prism is on the way too. So I think we're going to get some type of push from him. Seeing the situation with the Oracles a little more clearly this game, might be able to pick up on the idea that, yeah, he is teching up to Hive. He's not putting all of his eggs into the Ling Hydra basket, and this could be a good opportunity to attack. And it certainly is. Again, a little protection from those Oracles, too, with some stasis traps if you do have to fall back. But Reynor doesn't actually know this attack is on the way. He has missed the move-outs from Classic. The Ling will be the first thing to see it, as he is still consistently scouting. Baneling speed is done, but we don't have any Banelings on the field. These charge lots are going to be a bit of a problem. They're going to help clear out the Lings and the Hydras if the Storms do not. And the Storms look like they are plenty ready to do so. Hatchery does go down. This is just not an army from Reynor that really combats this army currently. Only if he got some type of surrounds and the Storms were the first thing to go. Which is possible, but unlikely, particularly without those Banelings, which can kind of tank a Storm, and there's always a chance they'll collide, but no Banelings, no chance. Another Hatchery does go down to a well-timed Zealot run by Classic, getting a 2-for-1 deal right there, while still looking for more. Third hatch is now the focal point, so the War Prism obviously used as a harassing tool means that we won't have a bigger army from the Protoss on the front lines. The Oracle does go down. Its last stasis trap. It's both Oracles gone, which could be an issue if we had Lurkers on the way. But we don't. Lurker Den has not been created. I imagine that was the plan until he was attacked. Getting the Hive upgrades for his Lings first does deal with the War Prism, or at least temporarily the War Prism did live. Now heading into the main base, the Natural. Tempests are already on the way for Classic. Classic has already made his transition over into air. So while he could have probably maxed out on the ground army, looks like he didn't want to, and it might be also because he was predicting Lurkers. Lurkers are so common. A follow-up to this, whether it is the Zerg being super aggressive and then saying, okay, I can't win here, let's go to Lurkers, or if they're playing defensive, and that's their ultimate goal, getting to the Lurkers with both upgrades. But that's not Reynor's goal at all. He once again is going to try and go into these ultras. And an ultra late game versus someone who already has Stargate technology is a really weird game. Because it sounds like the Zerg is just shit out of luck. And I think generally, if you assume that both players play up to their skill level, that's probably the case. But there's a chance that Ling Ultra causes so many problems on the ground that the air can't really compensate in time. It's one of those perfect situations, though, where the Lings start to get into every nook and cranny, start getting into every single base, the Ultras get a partial surround, the High Templars, again, go down first, and then the Hydra's a little bit more leeway to rip and tear, and then they can actually deal with the low number of air units. The Tempests change over to carriers, by the way. So he just only has two air units. So this would be one of those situations where absolutely the Ultras can actually be the winning move here, and then the Hydras, again, can take care of the 2 carriers. Particularly if they do have any fungal help. Fungal plus Microbial Shroud. And I don't see any Festers on the field anytime soon. Chitinous Plating is on the way, but no Ultras yet. Reynor actually setting up a 2-pronged attack, kind of. I mean, attacking on the right side with those Lings, Cracklings as well as trying to attack into the army on the left, keeping Classic a little distracted. Fortunately, Classic, he had a little static defense to help out. He had a bit of an army to help out, and he did have the supply to actually continue warping in after the fact as well, which can sometimes be the sore point of late-game PROTOSS. They're all big and awesome with their 200 maxed-out army, and then they need to warp in somewhere, and they go, oh my god, I don't know how to do that. Banelings are finally making an appearance, but not a big one. Just further harassment, maybe hoping nothing was protecting that 3rd base, but something was. The Mama Ship. Hydra Frenzy is on the way. Chitinous Plating is almost on 3-1, excuse me, 3-2. Numbers. 3-2 also done for all of these melee units. It's a strong army from Reynor, who also has a pretty comfortable bank. Not extremely comfortable, actually, and I'm not even sure comfortable is the right word. He has an okay bank for, I think, a Zerg in this situation. I mean, Classic would love to have the same bank, of course. That would be ideal, but this is ZVP, and we know that Zergs are generally going to lose out more on the resources lost. So, literally almost 2,000 right there would kind of make up for the bank difference. Ling's getting into the probe line. This is going to be little minor pokes and prods for a while. I'm not sure we're going to see total devastation of Classic when it comes to run-bys. Not like last game where it happened so early, so quick, and it was so consistent. It really hurt Classic all the way to the GG. But it's worth attempting. At the very least, you get a read on where Classic's army is and what his army composition is as well. So that run-by not working against this 5th base, but the entire army is now here. Storms are very good against Ling Hydra, not so good against the Ultras. We do have Classic recalling out the army that was a bit stuck. Frenzy was used right there, doesn't actually collect any of those air units. Looks like Reynor thinks that he has a chance. He knows that Classic is on the run, and that's usually a good sign, but Classic is running back to not just, I think, the army that was recalled, which... Did it already just pair up, or did more of it die than I thought? Maybe both. But also to all that Sim City, which was going to be very difficult for the Ultras to work against. Reynor, a little supply block, funnily enough, already quick to rebuild those Overlords. Spire is on the way. Got to prepare that Corruptor option for the increasing number of air units. We may actually see a more classic late-game ZVP, air versus air. We're also going to get some Spellcasters if that is the case. Only +1 on the air for Classic, but that's an upgrade ahead of Reynor. Reynor can only depend on the Hydras for so long, basically. Classic seems fairly comfortable on his 5 base setup, going up to 7. I'm not sure that should really be allowed. I mean, if Reynor knew about it, I think he would send Lings over to this very undefended base. But he sent his Ultras over to a kind of defended base. Ultras would have had trouble with the Sim City if the entire army was there, but when it comes to just playing an Ultra versus static defense, yeah, they'll chomp down on that. That's no problem. That Nexus might be a goner. Warp Prism also getting deflected by Queens by the looks of it. Reynor sharking around for an engagement on the right side. It's still a vulnerable army to those storms. That's a lot of... Oh my god, it's so many Hydras. He doesn't actually... What the fuck? He doesn't care? Okay, that was a little weird. The entire army was there. A brick wall of Archons and Storms and Carriers. And Reynor did not pull back. I'm guessing a misclick. Because what else would he have been targeting? He didn't get the Mothership. He didn't get a lot of the High Templars. That could be devastating. That just opened the gates there for Classic. Now Classic knows he has the opportunity to counterattack. Didn't save his one base, the 6th, but he did save the 4th, at least temporarily. Lings are back on it, probably going to get it. Reynor did have one mishap in his pocket to at least rebuild back up to max. The problem is that he's now also given Classic more positioning. Reynor's not finding Classic on the move, able to trade out, pull back, and rebuild. He's also not finding him in a very open area. And that's really what this army needs, is the PROTOSS army to be in a very open area. It's going to be ugly. Time Warp is also going to help out here. A couple of Immortals on the front line, taking down those Ultras. Storm's taking down the Hydras on the back line. And this does not look particularly fair. That is not. GG. Classic wins game number 2. Final map is going to be Ultra Love. So the winner of this will go on to the winners match and the losers to the losers, just like any other GSL group. Top right Classic, bottom left Reynor. No complaints, no real big brain thoughts on the first 10 minutes of that game. I do think that Classic got to the point that most Zergs are trying damn hard not to let the PROTOSS do, which is 5 bases, comfortable Stargate transition. I think that's the big one. You know, when they get to the almost maxed out Archon Storm army, that's also very scary, but I don't think it's as frustrating. I think there's a little bit of the difficulty of the army alongside the frustration of that army. That's kind of a double whammy for late game Zerg. You know, a late game ground army from PROTOSS bulldozing through all of your attempted compositions doesn't feel great, and it's very possible because it's just kind of how the balance goes, right? PROTOSS gets to their ultimate late game army, ground or air, I suppose, and the Zerg player has to chip away at it more than it gets an opportunity to take a big collision and win the game. But the ground army perhaps still feels a little more of a even playing field. I mean, particularly when the Zerg player doesn't have their own air, which is kind of the bigger thing about that last game. Reynor did not get the chance to make any type of corruptor, not transition, but addition, to which then you, again, would still hope as the Zerg player to catch the PROTOSS on the defense or in moving towards your army. You don't want to let that army, regardless of what type of army it is, to get to your side of the map. That makes it so much harder. And Reynor didn't really get the appropriate stops on Classic's developing PROTOSS army. Reynor, though, did seem okay with heading into the Hive game. He's probably hoping there was a few more scuffles and a few more successful run-bys. But he did kind of get stopped before he got started, right? So the Ling Hydra appeared, the Hydras popped out, the Hydras dealt with whatever was on the field, then it went for the attack, boom, Storm was done. Kind of a no-go zone at that point, not unless you have an overwhelming number of units, which Reynor wasn't going for. Then he pulled back, maxed out, and then it seemed like he just couldn't get the offense going, as Classic did push into him before he had the air army, still had the Storm Archon, and still found a lot of effectiveness there. And Reynor just needed something that was a little less of a direct confrontation going. But every time it seemed like there was the direct confrontation waiting, and one which was Classic had the perfect answer to what Reynor had. Reynor has a lot of choices to change things up, and I am talking about Reynor's change up more than Classic. Obviously, the PROTOSS, they can do something on 2 base. They can do a more aggressive maneuver on 3 bases. There's stuff that Classic could change. I just don't know if it really has to. I'm coming into this series thinking that he is the favored player, and that he is more comfortable in the late game. Maybe you disagree on the whole subject of the matchup. You know, that PROTOSS are more comfortable in the late game, Zerg isn't. Maybe you're like, no, that's you know, your balance complaining, stop that. But I think you could say that Reynor is not particularly in love with the late game. Most of the time, if you've ever heard these players talk, these Zerg players talk, you know, late game Stargate PROTOSS is kind of, the most frustrating thing. So it kind of, a double whammy in that regard, where it seems like the meta is shifting more to the PROTOSS being more comfortable in the late game, and then Reynor probably also isn't really appreciating it either. Classic is, I think, the favored one. So I think he's going to do the macro thing. Reynor brought out Ling Muta, brought out Ling Hydra. Not really any types of all-ins. Both of the times he prepared a transition. But he could change that to an all-in. He could change that to Mass Muta. He could change that to Roach Ravager. He could change that to Lurkers, even if we're still going along that later part of the ZVP plan that seems to be in action here. We could actually have Lurkers, which, to be fair, Classic was very much preparing for, and I don't think would have helped, in particular, that last game. But it's still a different option. Twilight Council is coming down a lot faster. So this is actually Classic mixing things up a little bit. So no Forge. 2 Oracles still, so there's nothing that screams difference to Reynor right now. There's no way that he can scout this, well, not usually. Although his Lings did get into the first game. And the Twilight Council coming down this fast, yeah, it could mean 2 things, I was going to say. It could mean faster Blink and more aggression with the Blink Stalkers, or it could mean Resonating Glaives. And it is Resonating Glaives. So, Classic, you know, he didn't get a lot done with the Adepts in the first game. They weren't Resonating Glaives. They were just a good number built up. This time around, thinking that he can find something when they're supercharged. Reynor has been going into the +1 melee build quite a bit and delaying perhaps the Roach Roarn. I think the Roach Roarn has actually been kind of safely timed, assuming there's a third base on the field, which he's been very good about scouting. And I think it's been pretty safely timed, but then the dilemma more so is that he hasn't been building Roaches. So if Reynor is very content on his Ling defense, he showed in the first game, and he showed in the second game, Resonating Glaives could be a big problem. Right now, Reynor is just continuing with the Ling defense. And obviously for the Zerg player, if their goal is to get to 4 bases, going on to 5, and then, you know, macro, and then do whatever major attack that they were thinking of, the ideal situation is to only defend with Ling Queen. Wait to build the Roaches if you even have to. But he's already seen it. Okay, so he sees the Adepts. Good wall there. Starts building the Roaches as well. +1 missile was already on the way, so I think he might have been going into Roaches regardless. Not quite the ideal setup for Classic, I guess, but still, that's pretty late response from the Zerg. The Adept Shade is going to see that the wall is intact, but the wall only temporarily intact. The Blue Shipper is going to go down. The Adepts are going to be able to shade on through all the way into the main base drone line. Some of them could cancel and then attack the third or the natural, or they could all just go through, try and find the damage, Adept Shade out as soon as they possibly can. And this is already that chaos that you want from Adepts. Maybe they don't kill 30 drones, maybe they do, but the chaos is already here. Reynor, not having an easy time with this, was a little surprised, had a great, or as good as you can, fast reaction to the situation. And actually, so far, is doing a really good job. The Adept's only getting 5 drones so far. Okay, make that a bit more now. But, you know, despite letting the Adepts in and the additional Adept attack coming into the third, this could have been way worse. 13 drones do go down, and that is a punch to the gut. But a reminder that so many Adepts went down, too. Yeah, I don't know. 17 Adepts or 13 drones? 39 Lings, too? Yeah, sure. But, I don't know. Classic... He opened up the gates. He had the second attack planned, and it looked like Reynor might still be a little low in the unit count to respond to 2 different Adept attack locations, but nope. I would say that's as good as you hope for a bit of a late response. Now, Classic is not really in danger of getting counterattacked. Roach speed would not be done, and he would have to have a very, very, very small army back at home to actually be afraid to think of the Roach counterattack. You know, basically he would have had to mess up on his macro. So you see that he kind of respects the idea. He did get a couple of stack defense, and he did make sure to have the high ground. He didn't go just like walking around with his stalkers. They don't even have blink yet. But yeah, the option is not truly there for Reynor without the Roach speed, without the attack already, I think, pre-planned too. Because again, if he was building Roaches long before the Adepts are there, and he had a hold like that, and he just builds more Roaches as more Adepts come in, okay, then that's a freaking scary situation. But Classic could clearly see that wasn't the situation. And Reynor is not particularly eager to go mass Roach either. He once again adding on all the technology, Hydra Den, Infestation Pit. Ling Run By is going to find some damage. They're not +1 this game though. The +1 went to the Roach as well as the Hydra. The Lings are going to get mostly taken down. They traded out a bit with the Zealots, not even. No, that was ineffective against the Zealots. But what I think Reynor wanted was more of a catch on Sentries, Stalkers, High Templars, perhaps the Nexus itself. Did not find it. Hive is on the way for Reynor. He is not maxing out. Classic on 4 base, Reynor on 4 base. He's on 83 drones, however, so recovering from the earlier drone attack, but to make that almost 90. getting all of his gases as well, and the Lurker Den is on the way this time. And that will certainly be ahead of any Stargate transition that Classic will eventually get to, but not now. I think actually more so the question is, will Classic attack before the Lurkers are ready to go? And it seems like he is prepping one. No Warp Prism, though, because there was no Robo. So that's the only problem here. And with that, might be the idea that he can't really push the issue right now, so he adds on a second Stargate as well. If he had a Warp Prism, I would not mind really going for the attack here, but without it, might not be able to do so. As Reynor dodged and weaves from the storms, he does have to do this, which might open up an opportunity for Classic to get into an even better position. That's a little bit scary as storms are still available, as Reynor is just looking very low on army supply, isn't he? Where the hell is the rest of it? Lurkers are being created, more army is on the way, but he's still not maxed out. Maybe having a little bit of a larva problem as well, because he can't spend all of his money. There we go, more Hydras on the way, but he did let Classic into that really brutal position, into the natural here. Sporecrawler is helping to take out Oracle's army on the backside, now threatening the rest of Classic as the Lurkers come in. This could actually turn around on Classic if the Lurkers get some pretty decent shots. Hydra's still trying to hold the line of the natural. Drones being pulled in as well. There's still some Stalkers left over. Will Classic think that he can win against this? It looks like the last couple of storms, he's going to hold the ramp for a little while longer. Archon's being formed as well. Stalkers blink aggressively into the main base. Oh my god, this was not exactly a clean fight for either player, but it's Reynor who is hit at a pretty pivotal point. Before those Lurkers are done, before his army was big enough to stop Classic from engaging, Classic saw the opportunity. And Warp Prism be damned, didn't need it, still found a lot of damage, killing 20 drones as well. Stalkers on the 5th base, or the 4th base too, right? Because the 5th base only just completed. Reynor, his economy in shambles, down to 55 drones. He is taking out a good chunk of Classic's army, but Classic is having a far easier time replacing it, as he also snipes a Lurker on his way out. 17 drones have gone down. Zealots without charge looking a little silly right now. But Classic, I guess, just feels that if he just keeps throwing bodies, he might be able to even get this 4th base. Not going to happen. Not by the looks of it. Doesn't even have detection for the Lurkers. Oh, the Observer barely survived. But Reynor, that was a little too much, man. That was a little too much damage. The drones plus the army going down in that defense, as he had nothing on the other side of the map. Classic has just been freely mining, no problem, back at home. Reynor's gonna have to try, I don't know. There's something really interesting that he can do here. His Lings do have +1 melee upgrade now, but there's not enough of them to threaten any type of significant run by. If Classic decided to just pull back because he didn't have a Warp Prism, said, you know what, I'm kind of happy just like leading you by the nose for a little bit, Reynor is in a pretty good position. I don't think Classic loses because of that. I think Classic was already preparing a lot of transition anyway, but Reynor would be doing swimmingly. He'll have his own aggression and start planting Lurkers every which way, and you know. But Classic saw the opportunity. The more that Reynor had to dodge away from the storms, the more that the army could scout out better locations, more threatening positions, until Classic found the ultimate threatening position, which is getting into the Aero Natural. Nidus Worm is on the way. I mean, that is a little clever. You can put Lings in there or Lurkers, but Tempests are available, and that kind of puts a damper in the Nidus potential. Not just because literally the Overseer was killed, but honestly, the air army being able to obviously float over these ridges, respond quickly to the Nidus, and then Lurkers won't be as devastating. You know, Lings would probably be worse in the Nidus Worm, as in for Classic. They would probably be a little more annoying, Tempest having the big, slow shot. But if the Tempests aren't ready, and the Lurkers get into your base, that can be one of the biggest annoyances ever. And now it's just not as threatening. Plus, Classic is on the offensive. Reynor not going to have any time to go for his own aggression. He's going to be busy defending. He's got 2-1 attack upgrades. His Lurkers do have both upgrades as well. His Hydras don't have range? Or are we... Oh my god. Am I just thinking back to a previous meta? Do they have range or don't they? Question of StarCraft. My god. Anyway, the Hydras aren't what you want against this anyway. The Tempest are going to take advantage of their low range and the Tempest high range. A Nidus Worm pops up in the main, and Reynor's just going to go for an all-in. My god. That is a choice. That is the only choice. Nothing else would have worked. The Tempest would have slowly beaten back the Lurkers, forced further retreats, and then opened up more opportunities to kill more bases, more technology, and more economy. So this was the only choice. Reynor going for the good old-fashioned base trade, I think, is the best choice he can make. Supply blocked already. Classic can't produce anything more on the defensive, but he always has the recall in his pocket, and a recall of just the Tempest would be good enough. There's not enough anti-air. There is literally not enough anti-air for Reynor to technically win this game. Unless he somehow plays it to the very last building. If Classic never recalls and tries to beat him to the last building. Okay, thank you for confirming I'm not crazy. So yeah, he is missing the Hydra upgrade. But it's not something that would make a difference here. The Hydras, even if they were in higher numbers, Classic would never let them get on top of the Tempests. Classic still is not bothering to recall. Seems like he is happy playing to the last building because he's the one killing buildings much faster. One Tempest might be killed to the Hydras, to be fair. Okay, there you go. That's still not enough. There are still 5 Tempests running around. Classic has a 5th and a 6th that is currently rebuilding the production. 13 Hydras make that 12 versus 5 Tempests. Assuming they were in range, I still don't think they win, especially if the rest of the army is there. And there is the rest of the army. Classic finally recalls, will deal with this army, and Reynor has got nothing else. He's bringing the drones. Pulling the drones into someone who still has Storm. Oh boy. Ouch, ouch, ouch. GG. Reynor does get defeated by Classic despite a stellar game 1. And Classic will now await the winner of GuMiHo versus Maru, is it? Yeah. So we're going to go into that TVT next. We got ourselves a best of 3 TVT. TVTs! Wait. Or do we? Oh my god. Maru is playing PROTOSS, guys. Top right, it is PROTOSS Maru. And the bottom left, we have GuMiHo Terran. To be very specific. Actually, out of the two, GuMiHo is the one that used to be random. I had no idea that Maru played PROTOSS. I kind of assume that all these top-tier pros off-race for fun. For a change-up, and maybe a little bit for studying. I don't know of any player who has said explicitly that they off-race to study that race. It has happened in StarCraft's history, but just not to my recent knowledge. But yeah, I mean, off-racing and playing at a high level is still very different from playing an off-race at your professional level. Because even if your off-race gets to, like, I don't know, 6,200 or something, that's, like, really good, but it's still not actually good enough compared to what Maru would usually play. Obviously, I have no idea what he is at on the ladder in Korea. This is very different, and presumably GuMiHo did notice, certainly notices now, and is now prepared to play a TVP. Now, one of the reasons this might be done is because GuMiHo has actually a pretty good record against Maru in TVT. What GuMiHo doesn't have is a good record against TVP. Any PROTOSS. Every so often, GuMiHo proves me wrong and plays a wonderful game versus PROTOSS. He can be a little tricky. But for the most part, it's never been my favorite matchup for the guy. Even when he does win it, I still feel like it's because it is unorthodox, and not just unorthodox as in, wow, it is something really crazy like mech versus PROTOSS. I mean, like, this is usually when a Terran's wisest move is to move out, and GuMiHo doesn't, and I'm not sure it's a big brain play as much as it is just he's not confident play. So I talked at length about this. I'm not going to do it anymore. But GuMiHo, just not the best TVP. Right now, the confidence from Terran players as a whole does not seem particularly high against PROTOSS players either. And I'm guessing Maru has a pretty good matchup rating for PROTOSS versus Terran. Having, obviously, the best Terran in the world, arguably, and then also, really actually practicing PROTOSS before I did this. I'm going to guess that this is one of his best matchups. And because he's good and his Terrans, he would know what the Terran wanted to do, and also because PROTOSS is in a pretty good state right now in the meta. I think Maru also might have his own complaints, or his own frustrations in particular matchups. And, well, the one that is most important right now is perhaps his frustration against GuMiHo in TVT. So he says, I'm going to take away TVT. I don't want to play against anyone anymore. I'm taking my ball home. And he plays PROTOSS instead. I think this is actually a really good move. Assuming that Maru can play up to a good standard, like a round of 16 PROTOSS, I actually think that's still asking a lot, but if he can, then I think he absolutely is still favored versus GuMiHo. Because I still would have called him kind of favored versus GuMiHo, even though I know GuMiHo's record in TVT against Maru is good. Oops, this is the soccer. Just because it's Maru, and Maru played really well last week. But alright. Fascinating stuff. One soccer went down, overstayed its welcome. Second soccer is at home. Got appropriate wall here. Blink is on the way. Hallucinations coming down very consistently. This is the second one. All the Terrans love PROTOSS. Clearly PROTOSS is truly the best race. Maru does not realize the army has dropped out. A little more north, little more. Gonna lose maybe 2 probes because of it. 3 probes! Gadzooks! Maru showing and he doesn't know everything about PROTOSS. No, that's not uncommon. Losing the 3rd Nexus is a little more uncommon, but Maru's getting a taste of his own medicine, honestly, right now. This is what he did versus Trigger. Something similar, at least, versus Trigger. And now he's the one dealing with the medevac drop, the surprising push onto the 3rd, and then the Banshee tank push as well might be coming up, and that's gonna be tough to deal with. Okay, finally gets an opportunity here. Great blink forward, captures the medevac, and we'll get the Cyclones as well. This could have continued on for quite some time. Maybe not the drops itself, because Blink was going to finish eventually, right? But if it had brought back 2 Cyclones and a medevac to the home base, it might have continued with that push I was talking about. It is a 3-gate from Maru, so you would usually be hesitant to push into this base, since they can build an appropriate number of Stalkers, but that did not stop Maru, did it? Maru does what he wants, and GuMiHo could have done what he wanted, but he lost the medevac. And now he's just forced to defend. So even though this looks kind of ugly for Maru, and I do believe it was... Oh, a Banshee was also caught! Oh, what? Stalkers! I had no idea why they were going that direction. They caught the Banshee. Hallucination was scouting the Banshee, of course, so he knew it was there, but still, to catch it, it's pretty good. So even though this was still kind of a... Yeah, not an ideal opener for the PROTOSS. The Nexus was canceled. 5 probes did go down. I would say that Maru was made up for it, and even if he didn't, I would still actually be more confident in Maru. I really think the longer the game goes on, the more that GuMiHo is going to have trouble. And this game is going to go up to, obviously, 3 base versus 3 base, but probably Maru's 4th base as well. Okay, just confirming I was kind of speaking before I thought, but there is a 3rd CC here. GuMiHo could be the type of guy who does pull a 2-base SCV all in, but not this time. Charge is on the way, Immortal as well. We are only on 3 gas currently. Fairly quick 4th base. We might be going for a lot of ground army. Colossus is on the way too, though, so while it is going to be Colossus, this is actually what PROTOSS are doing nowadays. Relatively low gas, enough to get a couple of upgrades, a couple of good high-tech units, and then, oh my god, a lot of charge lots, but oof, that was not the Stalker blink-in that Maru wanted to do. Holy shit, he lost 8 Stalkers. Whoopsie-daisy. I don't know what told him to blink in right there. From my memory, the tank was pre-sieged. Maybe he got a tank here, but... Oh, he did grab 2 tanks, to be fair, but still, that's a lot of Stalkers to lose. Oh, that's switching between each game. That's a good question. I'm actually not sure what the GSL rules are. No one really does this in GSL. No one really does it in offline tournaments in general. It's been a mostly online thing. You know, everyone will remember the Scarlet DRG series, but that's very much an exception. So it is different across all the tournaments, and I don't read rulebooks for fun. I'm gonna guess, and it is a guess, that you have to stay with the race you chose for the entire series. Yeah, Home Story Cup would be the one that I would guess they could do just whatever the hell they wanted. I'm sorry, I know, I'm very disappointing. I didn't read the rulebook. Some people do it for fun. I do not. Double drop into the natural. Does catch Maru a little off guard. Well-timed Colossus pop, though, is going to help out those Zealots. GuMiHo on the left side is also... Oh, my God. He's actually... GuMiHo's catching him so far. Out of position. Maru's in a lot of trouble. This feels so weird. I got used to calling Clem PROTOSS, you know, but I am not used to PROTOSS Maru. This army is going to be pushed back, but GuMiHo just runs back into the natural. I can almost guarantee that Maru knew that was going to happen as well. He doesn't really have time to roll his eyes right now, but I can almost guarantee Maru was like, well, I got to go push back the 4th base. Like, oh, okay, he's going to drop into the natural again. Like, well, Terran. I feel like you get more sarcastic to your main race when you play against it, but that's just me. Finally does a little bit of a split and does clear out the natural. GuMiHo stopped paying attention, but for the greater good, really. He let that natural army die after it already did a good amount of damage, just completely focus on the main fight, and it looks like Maru's PROTOSS is not up to snuff. It's not. He, I mean, he did a, you know, to be super critical, he did a lot of things wrong there. From the get-go, we had the 3 probes killed, right? And then a couple more later on that you know he was supposed to be prepared for. This is what happens when people off race. Their off race is actually very, very good, and when they face their off race opponents on similar MMR, it looks totally fine too. But as soon as they're forced to face the guys that their main race MMR would struggle against, you see a lot of the cracks begin to show. Dubstep. But you see all these tiny little things that really you kind of take for granted when you watch like main PROTOSS players play, where you're like, well, yeah, of course they saw this coming, and so they got the stalkers in position, and then suddenly the off race guy doesn't. Or, you know, Clem kind of famously in that series versus GuMiHo in Home Story Cup, there was so many missed micros, it was insane. He lost like 6 Colossus in the game. It was crazy. There's like no way he would have done that if he was playing Terran, you know, any equivalent of that. But just something about playing the off race. So in this case, I would say that was kind of the first mistake. Third Nexus cancel was the second mistake. Does not happen often, although it's not unheard of. It's not very often. He kind of gets a little bit of revenge there and with the Banshee. So I was like, okay, I'm going to play a macro game. He's fine. But then just complete dropping of the limes. He cannot hold all of the PROTOSS things when it came to the actual attack. Which nowadays, it is so common to see a Terran trying to do a split push, and the PROTOSS has got them, you know, they can read them like the back of their hand. The PROTOSS is like, oh, okay, and then they do a counterattack. This, I think, was also a mistake generally. I think that was too many stalkers to lose for 2 tanks. Then the stalkers all died, so the observer is the only thing scouting the move out. Does it get scanned? I thought it did. It does get scanned, yeah. So then there's nothing tracking the army, plus there's a little harassment going on. 4 more probes died to the Raven, was it? Yeah. Double medevac drop gets set up, and there's nothing scouting it. Now, to be fair, it's not likely that maybe a hero would have a scout on that too in the same situation. The stalkers would have had to leave just because the army was getting too big. But we're also missing the pylons that would usually be dotting around the map at this point on your kind of weak side. And the response, I think, would be quicker. We got Maru tracking the main army, actually, so that was fine. Probe even sees this. I forgot about that. The probe actually saw it. But it does such a great job pulling Maru apart. And then Maru, you know, he kind of lost track of the second army that he did scout. He did. And then it was able to approach his 4th base without any defense. This also feels like a little bit of a late Colossus, but I'm not certain about that. And then this is the start of everything. Shield battery goes down. Natural. I mean, I refuse to believe that Maru didn't anticipate the drop coming back in. It would be the most obvious thing in the world for him to do if he was playing Terran. 7 gateways. Maybe a gateway low. Oh, yeah, it is a gateway low. It's 8 when it's finishing. Doesn't pull the probes away. Oh, it's such a easy attack from GuMiHo. Just far too easy, but it did the trick, man. All right, let's see if Maru can do a bit better in PROTOSS in the second game. It's another TVP. In the top left, it is GuMiHo. In the bottom right, it is Maru. I no longer think Maru has a chance. I was full of optimism. I was like, well, I think the idea is there. The problem is playing PROTOSS up to the appropriate skill level. And as much as some PROTOSS are absolutely spanking Terran, that doesn't mean that it is the easiest thing in the world for literally everyone to do. So, especially as much as concept can be known, execution is a totally different thing. And Maru certainly would know the concept of returning with a drop into the natural. But knowing about it and actually dealing with it are two different things. And in that case, I think it wasn't even just having to deal with it in the moment that was the problem. I think he knew he was going to be in trouble. I think it was more all the things that led up to that point made Maru in a worse position than most of their PROTOSses at that point. Like, if we could get Hero to play the exact same game, we would see total perfection probably in the early to mid game. The probes wouldn't have died. The Banshee still would have been found out. The medevac with the Cyclones would not have gotten the third Nexus killed. Or canceled, sorry. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But then the counterattack on the Stalkers would have been better. Because while Maru did trade out the Stalkers for 2 tanks, and tanks are the anchor and sometimes are worth more than their value, like their literal monetary value dictates, I would say that losing the Stalkers, as far as losing the Stalker pressure, is actually the worst thing about it. Now the Terran goes, okay, well, now I don't worry about Stalkers. Like, I feel good about this. And the vision was lacking, which, you know, a lot of PROTOSS players, they're not grabbing 6 observers. They can't. They need to get to the Colossus. But they are putting down those pylons pretty quickly. They're pretty mindful about sending out a probe to patrol these ramps. And I really think his macro was bad. I mean, bad at a GSL level. Much better than anyone here, but bad at a GSL level. I don't think it was good enough. I think his gateways were late. And his Colossus might have been too. I really wish I knew the exact timing of a perfect Colossus 3-base timing, but it feels like a lot of the PROTOSS might have even, you know, well on their way to 2. I think what also... Okay, so here's the thing, though. All right, as much as I want to be like, well, here's the thing, and here's what PROTOSS, and this is how he hasn't played PROTOSS well. I did mention that that GuMiHo, the Terran, does sometimes trip up PROTOSS because he plays a little more unorthodox. And again, not extremely terribly unorthodox, but just the way that he moves his army and chooses to do things, his decision-making in the game, is actually different from most of their Terrans. And sometimes it makes his TVP look really bad. He just looks scared, and then when he does do something, the PROTOSS is right on his ass the entire time, and he doesn't do anything effective. But sometimes, you know, like he got to the GSL finals last year, was it? And his semifinals were off of a TVP, and he beat him. You know, so like sometimes his Terran versus PROTOSS zigging instead of zagging actually works. And right now, there are a lot of Terrans who would not do the double drop into the push. You just have to check out, like, Byun's TVP from yesterday. Or, yeah, I think it was yesterday. Or any of the TVPs from the Open Cups to see a total lack of that exact pressure, which seems so normal. If you're coming back into StarCraft 2 from a year ago, you're like, I don't understand. That was the most normal thing a Terran could do. No, not now, actually. Not so much. Byun was all about the macro and never pushing out. Clem gets like smacked in the face against max packs every time he tries to do something like that. It's not actually as common as it once was. So that might have also played a part. GuMiHo going for some early aggression once again. Not very dissimilar, but this time it includes a tank. So he didn't go for a second Cyclone. And he's going for a pretty direct push. This is going to continue rallying as well. So GuMiHo bringing out that slightly different build here. Now Maru went for a Stargate opener, obviously. He's got an Oracle and a Phoenix, but this is probably the most complicated defense you can ask for. Phoenix can be wonderful. Just ask Rotterdam. But they are difficult to use. They are fragile. They are spell-based, right? Or ability-based. And their power often comes in their ability to harass and scout and prepare preemptively, not react to the engagement. So far, I'd say that Maru's doing an admirable job defending against this, though. Shield Battery on the front, helping out. Stasis Trap helped out a little bit. Still pairing his Phoenix. Little supply block. Nope, just barely not. An Immortal is a good thing to grab here. But GuMiHo is continuing to rally, and the more that you don't nip this in the bud, the more difficult it's going to get. Robotics Bay is on the way, but a Colossus is still a good, 2 minutes from actually popping, and it still would have trouble against the tanks and now the Liberator. He's going to need a second shield battery. He is not building a second shield battery. Third Nexus comes down. I guess he figures he can't really use the money anyway, but I think that's wrong. I think that's incorrect. I think he needed to add on gateways. As soon as he realized what it was and how complicated... Oh my god, his army's coming through. Oh, gee. Oh, no. Oh, no, that ain't it. Probes are, on their own, basically. Okay, finally gets the entire army on the front lines, but that Liberator just shreked the entire PROTOSS army. The tank does go down, but it's the only thing that did. And a medevac, actually. Robo's not going to happen. Maru. The thing is, I would go ahead and assume that most races, they have a weakness to early game cheese and all-ins. And this is not SCV pull all-in. Well, some SCVs pull, but you know what I mean. But it is pretty dedicated. Certainly is dedicated. So I think this would trip up a lot of off-race PROTOSS. And a lot of less than GSL quality PROTOSS. And it certainly tripped up Maru. Maru probably would have had a better chance in TVT. But he did not want to play it versus GuMiHo today. And as such, he goes down to the losers. All right. I think it's disrespectful? No. I think Maru actually played PROTOSS because he was scared of GuMiHo. The conga line of probes was painful. That was... I mean, it's one of those things where you realize how bad the pull is going to be, but you don't really care because you know you're pretty screwed anyway. Would be my read on that situation. You're like, I'm dead. I did not prepare for this. I didn't scout it. I didn't prepare for it. My build's one of the hardest things to do against it. Let's just pull everything and hope. Oh god, look at that line. Okay, well, fuck it. Now I look stupid too. The winner's match is going to be another TVP because Maru wanted to off race. In the bottom right, it is GuMiHo, and the top left is Classic. Now this is nice because I think we're going to get a direct one-to-one game. I think we're going to literally, if we wanted to, we could pull up another StarCraft instance and be like, well, here's what Classic did at minute 3, and here's what Maru did, and here's what Classic did at minute 6, and here's what Maru did. There is actually very possible we get a same build order from the PROTOSS, at least the first game that Maru showed. I don't think we're going to get a Stargate, actually. Stargate's not particularly popular now. I mean, Classic might be one of the guys who would do it, but it's just not the most popular thing right now. Not exactly sure what Maru wanted to do with it. He did not want to be early attacked, I can tell you that much. But I'm not sure what else his plans were for it. He might have been planning a very conservative Phoenix Colossus build that has a slower third base take, and then maybe the multi-pronged aggression from GuMiHo that killed him wouldn't kill him in that game, but we'll never know because he died. But Classic could very well do a Twilight Council build, could very well do some aggression with the Blink Stalkers without the Warp Prism, third base into fourth Colossus, right? Because that's what PROTOSS are doing nowadays. And GuMiHo, well, he probably won't do the exact same build, to be fair, but he'll probably do something similar. probably do something off of 1-1-1 with a medevac and some type of push, small or large. And, you know, we really could just continue punching Maru in the face for playing PROTOSS and talk about how much he couldn't play in the GSL. If he wanted to be mean. And I'll certainly point out some things, because I really believe that Classic will win this. But as I mentioned twice, GuMiHo, sometimes the way that he plays this matchup, it is different. And sometimes different is good, sometimes it's bad. But sometimes it's good. First Reaper's on the way. Second Reaper's actually on the way off of this factory expand. We're going to get a Helene. It was just one, probably 2-1 here. Classic went for the high ground wall off, so the Reaper's not allowed in. PROTOSS units only. But that is a wide natural, so hard to stop any form of pressure on the low ground. Reaper's going to get in anyway. Rips off the PROTOSS only sign of the treehouse. And, well, probably shouldn't have, actually. Funnily enough, it's like a trap. Oh, well, no, the Reaper's going to live. No, it isn't. Yeah, nope. Yeah, no, it isn't. So it was probably more of a trap, honestly. I don't think the Reaper should have gotten in. The Reaper got the scout it needed at that particular time, honestly, with the Nexus. And then, you know, the Twilight Council's not going to come down until, I guess, what, 240? 230? Something like that, based off of the game we're witnessing right now. So ideally, you know, but he's going to have a second Reaper, so this is not an issue of scouting. It just probably wasn't necessary to send the Reaper in, and then he would have 2 Reapers here instead of just the 1. Regardless of that, he will still grab 2, maybe even 3 probes. Probes pulling in to help against the Helene was pretty baller, but now 3 probes could be 4. Reaper, 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 Reaper. Reaper, Reaper, Reaper. Oh, it's going to be 4. Ooh, GuMiHo showing off some of his micro. Oh my goodness. Why is there not a second unit helping? Because the Adept and the Stalker went across the map. That's the problem. That's what it is. The Stalker Adept going across the map. That could have been... Well, I guess it wasn't 3 Reapers and 2 Helenes or 5-3 either. That could have been devastating, but it wasn't. So instead, they let that one lone Reaper kill more probes than it should have. But it did delay the command center. Didn't cancel it, of course. It was a pretty significant delay. Stalkers accidentally find the medevac. Yeah! Boosts would still have saved the medevac, but yeah, I was going to say Classic hopefully did see it. He is recalling. He does need to do that. He can't continue to apply the pressure. GuMiHo is hoping for an opening. In this case, the opening in the main. In another case, might have looked towards the third. GuMiHo really trying to pile on this early game pressure is what he did versus Maru, and Classic had the had the benefit of watching that. So he's actually not just deflecting this early game medevac drop and early game Reaper Helene and saying, whatever, you're just, you're doing the thing that Terrans do. When you bring a tank, it's no longer just harassment. That's getting a little more serious anyway. The Classic had already predicted this, had already read into it, and so he didn't grab the typical third base timing, which is after your 2 or 3 gateways. He goes up to 4 gateways instead, grabs charge instead of blink, didn't grab blink at all, and is just going to be very, very safe on 2 bases. GuMiHo clearly wanted to do the same type of early aggression. He got so many tanks, he was prepared to move out, and it was stopped in its tracks by actually the non-blink stalkers, but it would have been humiliated if it had continued going just because that was the plan. It would have sucked. And so good on GuMiHo for maybe, seeing that later and later third Nexus and saying, okay, this really isn't worth it. Lost my medevac, lost my tank, third base isn't even down, let's not do this. But that means that Classic does get into a pretty safe 3-base setup. Something that Maru, technically did it, I guess, but he did take a third base cancel. No cancel here. The Classic is also going into Zealot's Storm, which I'm not sure GuMiHo has picked up on, but it doesn't matter. He's pulling the boys. Oh, God, he's pulling the boys. Boys are pretty good against Zealot Soccer, actually. They are tanking the shots, or at least they would try to. But unfortunately, this was caught in the midst of its move out. Meaning that Classic, even if he lost this fight, which by the way, he's kind of not. He would have so much time to defend. He'd build a shield battery, he'd, produce more units. That was a good trade. The Zealots, they lost their lives for the greater good, while the Stalkers focus fire the tanks. 2 of them were saved, but the Zealots, they were taking down the Marines, they were taking down the SCVs, they were cutting this all in half. GuMiHo is not going to get away with what he did versus Maru. Sim is done, but combat shield's only just begun. Starport, no reactor for Medivacs. SCV count 37. Probes at 47, and Classic feels confident enough to grab that 3rd Nexus. Storm is also on the way. The feedbacks are brilliant. Oh my god. And Storm is on the way, so there's no second SCV pull here. GuMiHo might do it because it's his only choice. Yeah, he is doing it. It's not going to work. There's no way this works against Storm. Storm is the best thing to have against an SCV pool. Blink is also going to help that actually be finished here. Combat Shields isn't even quite done, so GuMiHo's kind of got to... He's got to play this very safe. He needs that upgrade to finish. He also needs to tank hop, which is going to take a lot of time. And he doesn't have enough Marines to cut through these Zealots, I think, really. Classic might have been able to take that fight, but why chance it? He has time on his side. GuMiHo did not catch Classic off guard. This needed to be a hiccup into a hiccup into a hiccup, and it was not. Storm use on tanks is less than ideal usually, but in this case I guess it works. Although, one more Storm for the Marines would have been nice. Doesn't matter. Classic wins. Classic was pretty much all over that idea. Like, I think GuMiHo already played his hand versus Maru, which is a real bro move from Maru, by the way. Maru just showed Classic what GuMiHo's TVP plan was. So, bros. Bros before GuMiHos. Oh my god, I'm brilliant. Anyway, I also think Classic probably would have already predicted something like this. Based off of a lot of other Terrans choosing to go for the early game aggression. Cure did the same thing in his group, actually. Ben was the odd man out. And because GuMiHo does do a lot of this stuff. So Classic would have already been on guard, but then he just got a confirmation and then just plays it as he sees it and has a really good response to what GuMiHo was doing. If GuMiHo somehow tricked Classic into thinking he was doing this and actually he was 3CCing behind it, Classic could be in a lot of trouble, but that's obviously not the case. So, good game. The bottom left of Ultra Love, it is GuMiHo, and in the top right, it is Classic. Classic was all over that, like peanut butter on what bread? Or something along those lines. Isn't it mind-boggling that America, or maybe North America, I'm not sure, but it knows and loves peanut butter and jelly, but the rest of the world is still kind of figuring out that idea? There was a British Bake-Off where they were combining peanut butter and jelly, and the judges were like, wow, amazing, never heard of that. There's like, YouTube content where they get like Korean people to try peanut butter and jelly, and they're like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but it tastes pretty good. How in the world did that happen, man? Do we just use peanut butter more often? Because we, discovered the 1,000 uses of it? America. Who knows? Factory expand once again from GuMiHo. Something familiar, methinks. Some early game 2-base aggression. Beyond really was the odd man out. Beyond was going this 3CC stuff, trying to play a slow push style of Terran into a turtle style. Didn't work. But the rest of the Terrans, including the one who is typically confident in TVP, Cure, they're going for all this early game stuff. Peanut butter and jelly is not an acquired taste. Kimchi is an acquired taste. Peanut butter and jelly is... It should have been called... oh man, what is that dish? Ambrosia. There we go. That should have been called ambrosia. I do hate it when I watch these, people try peanut butter and jelly for the first time and it's strawberry jelly. I'm like, what are you doing? That's not This is false advertising. This is not what most people eat. Lies. The rest of the world probably had Nutella first anyway. That's true. But I actually don't like Nutella. So I think I'm far happier with this trade. Twilight Council coming down for Classic. His job in this game and in this series is reading GuMiHo. Classic is not going to get an easy peasy game with a typical factory expand 1-1-1 3 racks into 3rd CC. Most likely he's not going to get that game. And if you're not going to get that game, then you got to prepare yourself against some of the early game all-ins or cheeses, which is what Classic has been doing. First the Probe Scout, then the Adept Scout. Adept did fall a little unfortunately. It fell so quickly, is what's kind of unfortunate about it. Second Adept probably wants to get a read on whether there's going to be more Reapers and Hellions, and the Adept Shade will... I think it basically got the read. It did actually, no, because it's all 2 Marines, right? Yeah, okay, there you go. So he knows it's not more Reapers, and if it's not more Reapers, generally not more Hellions either. Cyclone it is, and the Adept does skedaddle in a way that, you know, for instance, Maru's Stalker didn't at the exact same time of the Cyclone. Maru, don't play PROTOSS again, you suck! I'm just kidding. I'm kidding! It didn't work, though. Definitely didn't work. And I would like to see more TVTs, so maybe I'm holding some type of really small grudge. Just like, I finally get TVT, god damn it! Hellion, or not Hellion Banshee, Tank Banshee is on the way. And this could go into that attack. I mean, it most likely will with the way that GuMiHo has been playing. Classic does have a Sentry that is sending over Hallucination, and this is... I think this is really what bothers the Terran the most, actually. As much as we get some of those really, let's be frank, boring, typical games, the 3-base versus 3-base setup where not much happens, I think what really bothers out of Terran isn't that that feels unfair at that point in the game. It's that doing anything early to try and throw the PROTOSS off so they don't get the perfect 3-base setup, so they don't easily get to a 4th base, is really hard to pull off because the Sentry does have recharge and does have hallucinations coming at you. If they think at all that you could be tricky, Sentry, hallucination, hallucination, hallucination. Still requires some execution, even when you have the knowledge, but Classic's execution has been fantastic so far. Takes out the Cyclone, gets gets Blink to finish to save the Stalkers, and also have them in a pretty good position, honestly, to help deal with this. Now there is an army on the backside. Banshees do appear in the main, however, and this is what you want as the Terran player. You want the Banshees to be the surprise, or the attack to be a surprise, but ideally one of them that then combines together to have a pretty strong general attack. And it looks like Classic, despite the scout on the Banshee itself, well, I guess he technically... He might not have actually seen it. He might have thought that was a Raven. Funnily enough. And if he thought it was... But no, I think he did know it was Banshee. The shield battery wasn't there, and the observer was out of place. Kind of typical situations, as he did have to deal with the incoming tank attack as well. So yeah, GuMiHo gets 6 probes off of the single Banshee. He doesn't get the attack that I think he really wanted to. Nice little micro there. Loses 1 Stalker, but keeps the rest of them pretty healthy. And he's going to do it again. I'm going to do it again! 2 Stalkers go down that time, make that 3. But this is an okay trade. Classic is suppressing GuMiHo at this point. 4 Stalker goes down. But he's traded out cost efficiently. As you can see here, those numbers are just in Classic's favor. As Classic grabs a 3rd base, deals with the 2nd Banshee, I believe, without any further probe losses. He was prepared this time. And GuMiHo is forced to give up on the aggression. Now he's got to wait for the 3rd CC, his stim, combat shields. When he pushed out, in a similar situation versus Maru, he won pretty quickly. A little double drop to the natural and then a push over on the 4th. Maru couldn't stand it. Probably going to do something similar again once he has the correct units and upgrades. I think Classic will do a lot better against it. And partially because, actually, he's going Charge Storm. So GuMiHo might not even get a chance to be the aggressor. Charge Storm is going to be in his face and constantly hounding him. And Classic will thus force GuMiHo to play basically quite defensive. It's not that Classic automatically wins with this follow-up, but he continues to put GuMiHo on the back foot. Makes him responds to Classic. So I don't feel particularly good for GuMiHo, despite a supply lead. This actually looks like it's good for GuMiHo. He's up 5 workers. But this is because Classic first responded to the attack, did lose those probes as well, responded to the attack, and then prioritized, I believe, the Storm, getting safe on 2 bases, getting to charge Storm on a budding 3-base setup, and is only now getting to, obviously, triple probe production. So yeah, if GuMiHo doesn't take any damage to the Storm charge, GuMiHo probably should have a good chance to win this game. Have a good army, good tech, and a good push. But only if he doesn't take a lot of damage to the Storm. Stalkers run away from the incoming attack. GuMiHo does have a 3rd, which I'm not sure Classic actually knows about. It could be a little bit of a fear of an SCV pull at this point. Which, again, SCVs do not do well against Storms. This would be okay with Classic. But the alternative is that Classic does get too scared thinking it's a 2-base all-in, and then he plays offensive. I don't think that'll be the case, though, just because he is bound to shark around. He wants to find GuMiHo moving, whether it's with SCVs or not. And so far, no SCVs. So the probe's going to see this. That's not where the 3rd base ended up. GuMiHo knows it's over on the left, just wants to get a good position, possibly to lay a 4th as well. But if he can get here, he'll also deny that cybernetics core. We're building a lot of charge lots in Storm anyway, so that's not the worst thing to lose at this point, but it is still something you don't want to lose. Little supply block for Classic is fixed now. Warp Prism, I heard it. There it is, on the backside, as you should. GuMiHo does not recognize that, I don't believe. Well, now he does. Scan for an observer, I think that was. Sees the Warp Prism, tries to pull back, realizes he can't, takes the stand while he can, but the tanks are goners, and the medevacs are forced to flee. Fortunately, they are able to. Classic a little late, I guess, to the... Oh, he used Blink. Gotcha. So, couldn't defend that with a Blink, but he's got Storm. He's got Charge Lots in the main. He's got more Storm because the Warp Prism was ferrying them around. GuMiHo not finding any damage so far, as the Stalkers are even able to... well, not quite tackle this, actually. They will eventually. He's got plenty of army for it. GuMiHo at this point is just hoping for some time buying as he leaves with exactly 1 medevac. And is, you know, that's with Classic's blessing. Classic maybe could have gotten that. But GuMiHo leaves with 1 medevac and 2 units. He was macroing back at home off of his 3 base. That is still a better economy than what Classic has. But Classic's choice to go into Charge Storm is really working out here. GuMiHo actually tried to move out again, which maybe not the right play. Storm is available, but it is the lone Storm. It seems like it will be good enough. Too little on the Terran side. And Classic wins 2-0. Shows how PROTOSS is done. And advances out of GSL into the round of 4. GuMiHo will wait for the decider match. Best of 3, TVZ. Officially, guys. Maru is playing Terran. Does not want to play PROTOSS versus Zerg. I think that is 100% the reason. Not because he lost his PROTOSS. The bottom right, it is Reynor. And the top left, it is Maru. Who I assume practiced PROTOSS specifically to face GuMiHo. Unfortunately, still could not withstand the early aggression that GuMiHo threw out, and Classic showed us a little more how it was done. But that is the risk you take when you off-race. Is it a risk worth taking? Well, if you believe that you're going to lose the TVT anyway, then kind of, yeah. Yeah. And Maru's TVT against GuMiHo is not good, surprisingly. He is overall one of the best TVT players in the world. I'm not sure who is technically, stats and all that, whatever. But he's probably top 2. And GuMiHo, I don't think actually registers as top 2, top 5 probably, but he does beat Maru. So I think that there's totally out of respect of GuMiHo's TVT. But TVZ, that's a whole other story. TVZ, not really an advantage going to PROTOSS against it, as Maru has plenty of victories versus Reynor as Terran. And the only argument I could see playing PROTOSS is that maybe it's a little less APM intensive, PVZ versus TVZ. But I don't think that's an argument, and it's clearly not one here because he's not playing it. Reynor, he had to play 1 PROTOSS, 2 Terrans. would have put in time practicing against both, as much time as you possibly can anyways, in the modern day GSL, which is lickety-split. It is fast. But yeah, he would have. But it might have been wise to build maybe a solid core, kind of foundation of what you want against Classic, and then really practice a lot of TVZ. Maybe give you your best chance possible. But it's actually very difficult to say, because then there also might have been the anticipation of having Maru face Classic, and then Maru would have advanced out first if you're trying to think ahead a lot. And then Classic would have been the person you had to face twice. That actually seems rather logical. And it just isn't the way it played out. So I don't know where Reynor's at TVZ-wise. I think he's still one of the fastest players in the world, but still very effective fast as well. And Maru has famously been dealing with a shoulder/wrist injury issue thingy-majigger. But Maru still seems pretty confident. He is going into 3CC. 3CC? Why do you put on the low ground? That just feels like it's screaming for something bad to happen. It doesn't even... I mean, technically it contributes to a wall. What's so funny about this to me is that if you put the third CC here, it is technically closer. It's also safer. That's why I have a bugaboo about this. I'm like, why though? Doesn't actually matter. The flow of TVZ nowadays is the Terran gets a 3CC and the Zerg gets, 75 drones and plays on. So, I don't know. But Reynor is not setting up to try and kill a 3CC Terran, even though Reynor clearly saw this. Maru is not shy about it, and this on the high ground also wouldn't have been shy about it. It is almost guaranteed the third CC is scouted. Or at least predicted, but scouted is still pretty appropriate. Either it's seen or you see the lack of supply depots, which is very easy for it to scout. And most Zerg players are not willing to try and all-in against that, knowing the Terran can scout and respond correctly. And the scout right now is purely the Hellions. 2 of them left at home, actually, so we got a very safe play, similar to what Kiro's doing versus Rogue. In a previous group, it is Hellion Banshee. Reynor has not seen the Banshee, but a safety Spore Crawler will come down at the appropriate time. And so a very, very typical setup. Lair is on the way, 4:30. Reynor's second gas is already coming down, too. Might not be typical forever. Third CC coming down from Maru as he clears out the Scouting Overlord. He gets a confirmation on Bio, which is, I'd say, pretty important. There's a chance that Mech will make an appearance in GSL. Not going to see the Banshee. It's all the Starport, not the Tech Lab. But again, you can sort of predict that. And this is only 6 Hellions, so not really a big fear there. Scarier is probably the fact that they will be contributing to the push as Hellbats. Banshee gets in the main right before the Spore Crawler appears. Just ever so slightly, timing-wise, taking advantage of the cloak timing, being what the Zergs are thinking of for the Spore. Unfortunately for Maru, we had Cure do actually almost the exact same thing. But he was even faster pre-cloak, and the Queen was out of position. So that's why the pre-cloak Banshee did damage in that series. In this one, the Queen was out of position, and yeah, didn't really work out there for Maru. Spire is the play. I was hesitant to call this, because I'm not a good Zerg player. But I was like, this is fast gas, and the Lair's kind of fast, and we got nothing else going on here, and no evolution chambers. Spire? And it is Spire. So Reynor bringing out the Spire in ZVP as well as ZVT. And you would know that this is still uncommon unless the last time you watched StarCraft was in 2017. Actually, the last time I saw mutas regularly might be 2019, 2020. But still, yeah, it's just not what you expect as much. Now, Maru, how much scouting has he gotten on this? Clearly not scouting actually the Spire. You should never be able to do that. But if you saw maybe a number of gases, not really. He doesn't see any evolution chambers, which usually they'd be on the front lines. Banshee went down, by the way. Yeah. And I don't think he can read into this and say Spire. So that is something Reynor's going to get away with. I hope it works. I think all of us would prefer more mutas in the matchup. They're pretty fun. And at times it seems like they're going to make a comeback, and Reynor has shown Spire before. But it never feels like it really sticks. And I think what happens is that every time it seems like it's really going to make a comeback, the Terran players then are like, oh, well, there's a possibility. So they actually scout for it, they actually mentally prepare for it, and they also remember how to play against it. When, you know, it's not been seen in a million years. You're just like, I don't even know what to do at this point. Start practicing against it. You remember the good old days as TDZ, and the flow and the pacing and the move outs versus the turtling, like, it gets better as more people do it. I thought Maru's 8 racks, as he adds on his 3 barracks on his 3rd, would have been a very good idea against this. Not that, again, he knows about it, but it would have coincidentally been very good against this. He doesn't actually go for an 8 racks, though, which is just kind of weird. It almost seems like he did change his mind. I'm not 100% about that. I mean, he still hasn't made missile turrets, so yeah, he didn't really pick up on the mutas. Generally speaking, 3 racks before 4th CC is an actual 8 racks. 4th CC before additional 3 barracks is a 4th CC. You know what I'm putting down here? But no, it's just 8 racks before 4th CC. Maybe he was expecting or was afraid of something aggressive, or maybe I'm just really overlooking something that basically came down around the same time. Anyway, in 8 racks, aggression against someone building mutas, which are usually non-confrontational, is a good thing to do. A 4th CC is a really nice thing for Reynor to scout. Like, thank God. I won't have to deal with a lot of pressure. He will instead deal with the medevac drop, cleans it up, and then he will have command over the map as Maru tries to take a forward 4th, which I actually like. It's actually pretty neat. Xel'Naga does block this would-be bridge, so the only avenues are way over to the left. Rocks could be broken to further reduce Zerg surrounds. Wouldn't mind that at all, but I'm not sure Maru's thinking about it. Honestly, I think I think pro gamers are now picking up on some of the rocks, because I know the last map we saw... Was it the last map? I think it was. Well, anyways, Classic was tearing down destructible rocks against Reynor. So, I know we're seeing a little bit of it, maybe not a lot of it. Missile turrets coming up, plenty of them as well. Mutas have been added to beyond just the initial like 8 or 9 that it was, so we're up to 15. +1 attack also finishes. Hive is on the way. So there's 2 ways really you can play Muta Ling Baneling, and that is ultra aggressive, wave after wave after wave of Muta Ling Baneling. The other way to play it is Muta Ling Baneling to control, harass, and expand, and then tech. And it's a little more what we see Reynor doing, although he is still investing in the +2. The rocks were broken down! Yeah! These ones were also available. Less avenues for the Zerg player to have run-bys and to get surrounds. 1-1 still not done, guys. That is terribly late. I know his evolution shapers weren't fast, but that still feels even later than I expected. My god. And that is certainly a downside to going for this quick of mutas, or mutas at all. 3-3 already begun for Maru. Excuse me, while Reynor is 1-1, not yet completed. Big ol' run by. Further buying time, taking a direct fight in a sieged up Terran is usually not an ideal situation. Banelings crash into the little army on the front lines. Mutas try and get a little bit of a backstab. Not very successful. Maru was on him, but the Lings do find a large number of Marines. Thank God the 1-1 actually finished, so only a 1-1 deficit for the Zerg. Mutas taking advantage of the lack of Marines at this point, going to find a tank as well. Now we're at 12 Mutas, so not too many have died in this game. Baneling number is still pretty high too. Not going to go after that, scared of what could have been behind it, just that lone tank though. Maybe could have if he knew for a fact, but this is why Maru is taking a very slow, cautious approach. He's tank hopping. He's also denying all this creep and all this vision so that Reynor can't ever feel truly confident pulling the trigger. The mutas also, as you saw, you know, they wanted to kind of get a backstab on the tanks that are usually left alone, and Maru was totally ahead of that. So he's definitely remembering and kind of just anticipating the Zerg play when they have this composition. Oh, the mutas finally get that opportunity. There you go. Ling run by once again. Depots are raised this time, however. Well, that's not a lot of reinforcements. Maybe that'll buy enough time. Meters are going to come in as well. Seems like they want to join the party. Lings decide to go to the third CC as well. Yep, the supply depot was broken. Unfortunately, Maru is going to have some Lings in his natural in third. Pulls back the majority of his army. Leaves a couple of tanks, but Reynor, again, without that scouting, not thinking of jumping on the opportunity. He's trying to get as much damage as possible in the main and natural, and he is getting quite a bit at this point. 3-3 is about to finish, however, and 2-2 melee was quite late, too. These upgrades are going to be such a problem as we get to ultras. You know, that is a better thing to have against Marine tank at this point, but we are also starting to add on those Marauders. We're getting to the Thor. We're perfecting our upgrades. We're getting to the perfect late-game Terran army, and the Zerg army can't stand up against it without ultras. And even with ultras, it's still very positional. Are they siege? Are they prepared? Are they ready to micro? And Reynor still doesn't have chitinous plating, so those ultras will not be here anytime soon. Maru seems to have a real good handle on the situation. 4 base, pretty much unbothered, really. Even with all the run-bys, only 27 SCVs, like starting off a 4th command center economy. Really not that bad. And the 5th also getting up and running is kind of one of the goals of Reynor not to let happen, is to make that as difficult as possible. But unfortunately, not given the opportunity. Now going to go and harass it a little bit, but missile turrets are finishing, so I don't know about that. Investing in a +3 flyer attack. Generally, at a certain point, the Zerg players do give up on mutas as far as remaking them or continuing to upgrade them, but not Reynor. I don't know. It is a pretty expensive upgrade. Reynor is full of cash, but right now he's not very full of good army. This is Ling, Baneling, Muta still, and Maru's army is simply better than it. 3-3 versus 2-2. Proper concaves, proper pulls and splits, proper tank positioning. Reynor's desperately trying to find more damage, not just to do more damage, but also to pull this army back. And Reynor does lose the base. He will save the drones. SCVs are going down. This is good. It is buying the time for the ultras to pop out. A little supply block, unfortunately, but more ultras will be on the way. Lings have Burrow too, so this is adding to the annoyance. Maru's going to need missile turrets for both Mutas and Burrow. And he has lost all of them in the 3rd and natural. But the Mutas, looks like their time is phasing out. I really wouldn't mind a cancel on this, but maybe for later Broodlords if we get that far. Burrowed Banelings are in play. Burrowed Banelings, y'all. Not that time, though. Lings could still pop up and attack. Maru, realizing that there could be an attack on the front, doesn't want to spend the whole entire day defending his 3rd and natural, which are also not less important as time goes on, because you don't want to let the Zerg into the main artery of your production, but they are less about the economy. You can kind of start to prioritize the actual mineral bases. Big engagement coming through here, although not one that Reynor really wants to chase after. To defend the base, sure, but chasing through this choke seems like a bit of a problem. He's going to do it anyway. Maru is quite ready for this. Ultra actually all by its lonesome. Poor little guy. +3 armor is almost done. Reynor really not taking as many beatings as I expected with his significantly later upgrades. Resources lost, actually not bad at all for a Zerg player, honestly. That's actually a bad sign from Maru. Reynor still has a lot of cash, although he is starting to lose hatchery after hatchery after hatchery. I believe that's 3 hatchery kills. And that evac able to fly away. Oh, that was a good one of mine hit. Oof. There we go. 5 hatcheries have been killed in this game. Reynor does need more money. I know 4,000 minerals sounds good now, but he's going to probably take worse engagements as the time goes on, because he's going to start taking more direct engagements. Right now, he's been able to run by and counterattack and fly around, and now he can't do that. He's got to actually stand and face the army, which might not go well for him over and over again. Ultra is, a little bit of a run by. Maru late to the response, as was I. The command center looks like it will fall. SCV's not quick enough to the repair. Finally, Reynor digging into the command center counts, but only after Maru had invested into further command centers, so only a temporary kill. Although this one, okay, canceled, not killed. So that will only be temporary. That's quickly replaced. It's still good for Reynor, who got the monkey off his back. The army had to go to respond to that, so he finally gets his bottom left base back up, and he does a double expand on the 2 bases that were canceled, killed. A little bit of creep spread could also be continued, because that is certainly missing right now. I think he's about to be on it. Ling run by is scanned, actually. Good scan right there. Maybe the Widow Mine caught just the tail end of it. And as the run by heads towards the natural, there is no wall right there. Army tries to respond, but Reynor thinks it's kind of worth it to just go for it anyway. And I would agree with that. Just causing further headaches for Maru right now as the Lings it into the main. They could kill the missile turrets and then burrow, causing other scans. And once again, the opportunity to attack on the front lines, this time taken by Reynor. Maru not in position to stop this, will lose another planetary. Gonna try and take the engagement with the Ultras otherwise, but the Marauder count's really not high, you guys. 8 Marauders left over right now. You do not want only Marines against Ultras. Planetary not yet done to help out, but it looks like Reynor realizes his Ultras are a little too lonely. Letting them continue on into SimCity, into Planetary, into more army. Not a good idea. Maru holds on to his technically 4-base setup, but we are running out of minerals in the main and natural. SCV count's also only at 45 after the continued run-bys, killing almost 100 SCVs. Almost. This is an orbital that Maru is just hoping will be gotten away with. The Ling run-bys have been heading there pretty consistently, though, so I think he's also hoping, basically, he can lift the command center and let the SCVs die, but at least he saves the command center. He knows it's on a timer, and he's willing to go for it anyway. Looks like we got a little bit of a drop going down, but not really finding a lot of efficiency. A big push on the front lines. Could find this hatchery again. This is going to be a difficult one for Reynor to actually hold on to, for sure. But as Maru moves to the right, Reynor moves to the left. Liberator does need a siege to help out. SCVs do need to repair, and I think with all that combined together, we will have a defense on here. Baneling's going to go crash into the SCVs. That might make it a little bit too much. It does! That was just the little cherry on top that made the planetary actually fall, and Maru no longer has these excess command centers to say, okay, I'll just retake it. He is now very much in need of keeping these bases properly protected. Both of them still very close to maxed out. Clearly Maru ahead on the army supply with the 41 SCV count he's on compared to Reynor's 76. Spire is on the way. Was it killed? No. He might have forgotten that he already had a Spire, because that does happen. I don't think double upgrades are really necessary at this point. He might want to go into Greater Spire, and if he is, he's actually missing out on a huge time benefit because he forgot. I don't know if that's going to be the game-deciding situation here. Okay. All right, he's building Corruptors. I guess this is actually on purpose. Okay. He went to go double upgrades. Or something. I still don't really see the point of the double upgrades, but we'll see. Maybe he thought the Liberator count would be a little bit higher. Oh, that's a large army that was just out in the middle of nowhere. Maru not paying attention. I guess he wanted to get the snipe and then pull them back, but maybe attack moved them so that they didn't pull back. They took the fight. Well, this is a good concave, and the Ultra Army is not going to want to combat that. Command Center does not lift. Cracklings chew on that way too fast, and this one could also be a goner. Maru down to the last little bits of his economy. The last little itty-bitty boost. He's not going to be able to replace his army, and it has been cut down to size. Now it's a far similar army supply. Infestors are being added in to help a little bit more on the cost efficiency. No longer can Maru just fan out and concave, run away from the approaching Ultras. Scan ahead doesn't reveal any of those infestors. I know I saw at least one. There it is. Maru's got to hope this army ends up winning the game. It could. If it wins the fight, Reynor does not have enough money to rebuild an entire army, and this does look like a bad fight for the Zerg. Up the ramp, into the choke, into the concave, but he's going to push through anyway. Corruptors will take care of the Liberators. Oh, the fungal from behind! Oh, that was it. That was it. GG. I mean, as soon as Maru had to start running away, I think that was it too, but the fungal was really it. Maru not able to make the final stand on the high grounds. Reynor wins game number 1. In the top right, we do have Maru. In the bottom left, it is Reynor. Just a reminder, this is the losers match. So whoever loses will drop out of GSL. Season 2, I think, starts next month, or even sooner than that. So it's not a long time away from it, but yeah. Chat brought up, where are the ghosts? And that's a very good question, actually. I was saying that I don't think we had a Ghost Academy built, so I could have easily seen a situation in which Maru was totally planning on getting them, and then he lost all the SCVs. But I don't think he got a Ghost Academy. And there was a time in which he was surely capable of adding that technology. He did eventually get to 5 bases, held on to it for a little while, even though his SCV count was below 50 for the majority of that game. That's still with mules. Enough to give him a little bit of a bank. So I don't know. I don't know. Could be that he thought the game was going so fast and that he actually occasionally had the advantage, you know, in the tug of war that was going on, that he thought time over technology, basically. You know, if you start building ghosts, you gotta wait for them to produce, take up the supply without actually being on the front lines, take your money, then maybe you're, you know, waiting for them, so you miss the opportune time to go kill that base. I don't know. Yeah, I think by the end he certainly lost over 100 SCVs. But there was a time where he was comfortably on 5 bases. It didn't last an incredible amount of time, but there was a time. And I would say sometimes you do have ghosts on 4 bases. But that is a bit dependent on how the game is going, how much of a tug of war it is. You know, maybe they're also later because the ultras, they weren't exactly the quickest ever. We had that long portion of Ling Baneling and Yuta. Forward 1 Rax, by the way, which as 1 Rax, kind of just looking for the Marines to kill the Overlord, which is exactly what it does. Okay. Unfortunately, Reynor did go for a few more Lings. He is going to go for a little bit of a cheese here. Pool first into the Roachborn. Haven't seen this one in a while. Good SCV pull from Maru to barely save those 2 Marines, but the bigger problem is that he does not see this attack on the way. No Reaper, no SCV Scout, nothing. That's a little sketch. He should be aware of the possibility, seeing as it was a pull first. He knows the timing. But the Hellion might try and run across, knowing that that is the most dangerous thing on the field, the possibility of the Roach attack. I've seen Terran players defend the Roach attack even without scouting it, though. With the low grounds wall buying a little bit more time, they can emergency get a bunker and then barely squeak out the Cyclone. Now, that was, honestly, more so in the previous patch, but you didn't need a Tech Lab. So this is where I'm worried. Tech Lab is coming down, though. Okay. It seems like either he wanted to do something a little bit different on the opener anyway, because we do occasionally see a non-Hellion-based Terran opener, or he is saying the scariest thing to happen right now is roaches. He's just not scouting it. But if that's the case, then he, you know, maybe a bunker would also be very nice to have. Cyclone on the way makes me actually believe in Maru's defense here. I think he's going to be fine. Roaches obviously make their first appearance. They go after the weakest building, the supply depot. Bunker will be made. Roaches not particularly quick to ending a game. You know, like they almost never win the game directly anyway. It's more about, can they get the wall broken and cause some SCV losses? If you don't see them backing this up with speedlings or just lings, it's not going to try and end the game, but it is going to try and do a lot of damage. 6 SCVs go down alongside the supply depot, but the bunker will finish and the second factory unit will come out. Eventually, this is going to be a tank. It's kind of an awkward situation because the tank might pop out in the left, but the medevac is there to save it. And Reynor has been droning this entire time. The tank no longer scared of the roaches. Oh, it does pop out over there. Okay. I think a Cyclone did that too, actually. Medevac picks up as soon as the roaches leave. Decide to go for a little harassment. Just actually tailing the roaches. Gonna get some free roach kills. Yeah, micro! Loses 2 roaches. Good micro there from Maru with the Marines on the other weakened roach. Now the Cyclone going to try and bully these Ravagers. The Ravager would be the best thing to get, and he's going to get one. He might even get the second one, and this is starting to turn around a little bit. Don't want to lose these units that you afforded. Instead of drones, they're supposed to last 5 ever. They're supposed to deflect any type of early aggression. Unfortunately for Reynor, that is a bit of a problem. Now, he won't be quick to rebuild those roaches, but he does need some form of defense against this army, and then, I mean, you know, most likely they're not going to go into Hellions, to be fair, but it's just more army that died unnecessarily that you could have had. Let's say when the first 2 medevac drops appear, you could have had those units and then also supplemented them with speedlings. Instead, you got to rebuild more speedlings. 2 drones also went down. And its difference would have been keeping or not keeping one, but pushing a queen to the front a little bit faster. The creep wasn't there. The 3rd hatch wasn't done. All the reasons you wouldn't have a queen already there, but that might have actually been the fix. Oh, well. Heard a Banshee. There you are. 4 drones are going down here. Spore Crawler in the 3rd, not quite done. Maru is going to see that and greedily go for a 5th drone. Oh, that was very greedy. Good transfuse. Reynor saw that coming. It's the League of Legends micro he's been practicing, guys. So Reynor, he lost 6 drones in total. All this army that he has to replace, and whenever he replaces army, it's not building drones. Maru, very comfortable on his now almost 3 base setup. 1-1 upgrades already on the way. Faster than Reynor's. Stim on the way. Combat shields to be on the way. And we're about to be up to 5 barracks. Will this be the game that he goes for an 8 racks? Maybe. We have seen 8 racks at least 1 game of each TVZ best of 3, I think. And I think this is a totally fine mount for it. And he did add on the 3 barracks first last game, but then almost at the same time added on a 4, so I don't quite know how to read into that one. Two Banshees are paired up. Gonna help for the rest of this game, whether it's a little harassment maybe on like the 5th hatch, or just spotters. Both is good. Drop with the Cyclone. Triple drop. Reynor might not be prepared for this. He's not prepared for it? It's a little tricky. The Lings, you know, be careful. They want to surround, but they don't want Maru to start stutter stepping against them. Combat shields wasn't quite done, so that was not a super effective Marine army. Banshees, I think they canceled a 5th, or they killed a drone that was on the way to the 5th, because I saw that about to be built. Go into the natural, lose a Banshee, kill 2 drones. Looks like the drop has truly been taken care of, as the Lings are now tailing the medevacs. You can't unload fully. Invitation Pit is on the way. Reynor is going to get up to that hive. Maru has added on 3 barracks. I think he actually just had almost 700 minerals. Wait a minute. Yeah. No. 850 minerals. I think he actually just had a lot of minerals in the last game, which is why it looked like it all happened at once. This is far tighter of a build, right? He gets 450 minerals, he puts down 3 barracks. So he is 8-raxing. It's something that Reynor has to be really scared of. He must know this is very popular. He has been practicing on the Korean ladder and watching StarCraft games. Unfortunately, forced to give up this base without much of a fight. It is better to give it up. If it's going to die, let it die. Don't lose 30 Banelings and 30 Lings in the process. But it still sucks to have that let that go so easily. 4th base is also not as fast as it was supposed to be, because I swear the Banshees ran over it and saw the drone and killed it. That was absolutely going to be placed much faster. 2-2 actually managed to get a little ahead of Maru, as it looks like. Maybe that'll help Reynor as the game continues. Burrow was on the way too, I guess, for some burrowed Baneling action. Not sure if we're ever going to really get the opportunity for that. A Viper or 2 could be helpful against the increasing tank counts, although it's not high. It's only off a single factory after all. It's still helpful. 4th CC is coming down. It's not the biggest 8 racks we'll ever see. There's the intents to macro out of it. You still have no 2nd factory when you do this, and that is usually a problem. If the Zerg player is handling the 8 racks really, really well, then maybe that lack of additional splash could hurt you. But it seems like Maru is getting a lot done with this. Already killing a 4th base, harassing the 5th, killing 9 more drones. The tanks fire on the 3rd as well. Maru ahead by 50 supply, guys, so I think this is easy to call at this point. Baneling's going to crash in, and tanks didn't really get an opportunity to get the best shot there, but while that is a successful cleanup, the natural is not successfully cleaned up. Maru with the focus fire on the Baneling, and that is just, it's too much. Reynor really, actually never really had a chance Did he? Never got to an ideal position for a Zerg player. Tried to get to hive really quickly, but he ultimately never really used it. And even if he had, for what, crackling upgrade, probably wouldn't have finished. Viper wouldn't have helped. Yeah, he was not in a good position at any point in that game. Maru with the good handling of the roach attack, and then the counter was really good. And then the 8 racks was too quick for Reynor to deal with. And now it's all tied up 1-1. Bottom left Maru, top right Reynor. I do want to emphasize how likely it would have been for Reynor's roach attack to work. I know I say I don't see it very often, and I then concede it's probably because it isn't good anymore. But there is a good chance that the Terran player doesn't die to it, but it takes a lot of damage from it. Because usually the Terran player doesn't grab that Cyclone. But I think Maru was just tipped off by the pool first and figured that worst case scenario, he would have a Cyclone Marine drop, which isn't really the ideal opener if it was pure macro from that point on from the Zerg player. Sure. Oh, he's going to do it again? Okay, all right. But it's okay. GuMiHo will sometimes open up with that, seeing nothing from the Zerg player. He'll just open up like that, and it's fine. So I'm guessing that's what happened. Or Reynor did get really unlucky, and Maru did just pre-plan going for a Cyclone like that. Yeah. He also didn't get those 2 Marines. The SCV pool was just in time, and that also could have caused a lot more chaos. I could definitely see how it was a really good plan for winning first game. And so doing it again... I guess. I say there's like a good chance it would have worked because there was a good chance that Hellions were built. On the other hand, there was no guarantee that Maru wouldn't have gone for a Reaper. Maybe that is when Reynor decided to do what he did, though. So in this case, he's going to see that the Overlord's going to see, frontal wall. It's going to see a Reaper. Okay, it's not going to see the Reaper, but something's going to see the Reaper. Maybe Reynor decides, not to go for the Roachborn. But a very fast speed opener. Maru is going to be able to scout this with the Reaper, and knowing that it isn't a Roachborn. Let's see if he actually fully scouts, because the Reaper sees the late hatchery, and its first instinct might be, oh shit, the Lings are about to appear on my natural, the Roaches could be on the way. But once he determines that's not it, he could figure that it's speed. And maybe he's just as cautious as he should be with the Hellions. 2 Marines built after the fact. So the factory is not going to get a reactor particularly quickly. 3rd CC still going to come down. Not on the front, though, like he did in the first game, which would be actually bad against this, I think. But as long as he can get to those Hellions eventually. Wow, that's why he went for this. 2-base Lair? 2-base Spire? I know the Spire worked in the first game. And he has done this, I'm going to say recently, but not really. And then the last year, he has done this. Oh, it's Ling Queen drop. Oh, yeah, the gas is still not coming down. Okay, all right, yep. All right, Maru. He's going to have to prepare for another all-in that he does not know about. Currently scared of the fast speed, which do show up, actually, on the front. Hellions pop out at the perfect time, however. Second barracks is already on the way. So instead of a starport, which would be building a Banshee at this point, most likely, which then the Queens would be able to deal with, no problem, because Cloak wouldn't be done. Plus, you could make an Overseer, because you have a Lair. That's not necessarily the most helpful. I've had some recent experience with this all-in. Anyways, it might not seem like a boon to have the second barracks done producing Marines, because it's just Marines, right? Like, who cares about Marines? But actually, the Banshee could, in a way, be worse. Oh, the Hellions scout this. That's the most important thing, anyway. That is the most important thing, regardless of what I was about to talk about. because it still would have been a very low number of Marines. And the idea is, if he can buy enough time, 3 Marines at a time could actually still be a good number, but you would need that time bought. And if he didn't build bunkers, if he didn't build a wall, he would not have that time. Thankfully, he is building all these things. Those Hellions get the scout at the perfect time. Reynor gonna go for it. Of course, he's gotta. But the bunkers are about to finish. The Queens do not tear through that particularly quickly. The SCVs have been pulled. SCV repair can happen on 2 bunkers. 2 bunkers are done. 1 bunker is kind of all you need. Queen transfuse. Lings are looking at the natural or the main base as well. Marines do end up falling. The natural is broken. The main base is broken. And there is nothing else. That is it. Reynor wins 2-1. As Maru's scouts is not fast enough. The bunkers were not fast enough. He couldn't get the bunker finished. SCVs fully surrounding both bunkers with Marines in it. And the Hellions then maybe could have, done a little more back and forth action as opposed to being stuck in the middle of everything. If this bunker was finished and the SCV is fully surrounded and the Marines are in both bunkers, I actually think this could have been a hold. The engineering bay also would have been done if he had scouted it fast enough, meaning that he could have repaired it and stopped all these Lings from coming. Ay. Reynor, he's got the guts, man. And Maru's at a GSL. The final best of 3 of this group. Who advances into the round of 4? And who drops out? In the top right, it is GuMiHo. In the bottom left, it is Reynor. If you've watched this far, then you must like GSL at least a little bit. And if you like GSL, you should probably support them at patreon.com/GSL. The money goes to the players. $25,000 on the line for this particular tournament, but the real prize is being the winner. Not because of the prestige, because of the EWC qualifier. There's a little prestige, I guess. But really, it's about qualifying for EWC happening in July. 2 qualification spots from GSL, 2 seasons, each champion gets to go to EWC. So that's the goal. There are other ways to get there. There are online qualifiers that will be happening across the regions, as well as a global qualifier. You can go to DreamHack Dallas if you are so inclined and try to win there. And there is also a tournament happening in Bulgaria. It has already has its set players, but someone could win from there as well. And then Clem is the only one who is guaranteed going already, because he won last year. Reynor goes for a gas cancel into a gasless pool, actually. Reynor just got warmed up on the TVZ against Maru. Ended up cheesing Maru out of the game. Second game cheese didn't quite work. Third game cheese did the trick. Ling Queen. And Maru just did not scout it fast enough. His Hellions spent time obviously deflecting the Speedlings, which were a bit faster with the opener that Reynor chose. Once they deflected it, I think they also still spent some time at home, maybe some seconds, but pretty crucial. And then they didn't immediately go across the map and check if there was a third hatchery. Because as soon as you see there's no third hatchery, alarm bells start ringing. He only got sight on the all-in when the overlords were scouted, which is still better than nothing, but still not quite enough time to get those bunkers up. I mean, the 5-second difference could have been really big. Reynor would have done enough damage to play out the game, but Maru maybe could have survived, and then with 3 CC, double medevac drops, we've seen Terrans make a comeback from that. But nope, Reynor knocked out Maru, and now faces GuMiHo. Will he play similar? Will he play a lot of all-ins? Or will he do what he did in the first game versus Maru, which is actually quite macro? It was 3-base Spire, but then into a hefty late game. GuMiHo, I might not have the most confidence in his TVP, but I think everyone's pretty much always liked his TVZ. At times, he's not the fastest player or the most mechanically sound, and that is, I think, the only thing that has held him back. That's a pretty big thing, obviously, but held him back from more GSL titles. He's won 1, and that was when his mechanics looked the absolute best. He was microing every which way, putting Reapers into his 2 medevac drops, and that was also a different meta, of course. That was many, many years ago. Yeah, it can be good and it can be really fun. I think people also remember him almost taking on Cyril in DreamHack. That was pretty cool. He can absolutely look really good in this matchup, but he also just plays it in an interesting fashion. Like this! Who does this? Not many people do this. Just Marines first coming out of the reactor, I guess, and then into the Hellions. But so many Marines. And GuMiHo didn't even scout the lack of gas, by the way. This actually, I think I would have been 100% on board. I am on board, because it is working. But I would have been 100% on board, because it would have been like, oh my god, he scouted there was no gas, there's no speed links, there's nothing to stop the Marines, oh my god. But that's not the case. He just did it, figuring that there wouldn't be enough speedlings, even if they were out. And that, you know, the Queens can't quite stop it unless they're all together, which they wouldn't naturally be. They'd be injecting and creep spreading. And he's going to get a hatchery off of this, isn't he? Hellions now reinforcing just to help take care of some of the Queens. They do desperately want to get to the drone line, but good on Reynor. Kind of predicting that, getting the wall to ensure that there's only one problem happening at a time. Roaches being focus fired, Hellions, a little bit of damage, adding up quite a bit. No transfuse on the hatchery. It seemed like a goner no matter what. There would have been 2 transfuses, but I think, yeah, this still would have been able to focus fire it down. This will eventually fall, but this certainly did what it wanted and more, I think. I don't know if you predict this killing the hatchery, man. Reynor's Roachborn is too late. His Roach is too late. His Queen's not strong enough. GuMiHo, a little razzle-dazzle to begin this game. Now going into a 3cc, Hellion Banshee looking more normal as the game goes on. But with a quick little snipe on that hatchery. Oh, he's in a Viking opener, too. Oh, he's a Viking. Wait, no. Oh, this is weird. He did 2 Banshees into Viking. It's usually the opposite. Okay. Well, he's still getting a Viking. I still think that's cute. He's going to go clear out the Overlords, open up more opportunities for further drops, which I assume he's going into. Oh, wait, no. No. Okay, yeah, no, he is. Yeah, 2 engineering bays go down, barracks going down. Yeah, he's going to bio. The gases were fast, which is why I was like, oh, maybe not. And they are really fast for a bio player. I wonder if he changed his mind. No, this is actually fine. Never mind. I'm the stupid one. This is pretty perfect as far as the timing goes. 30cc on the way. Is it though? I was looking at the wrong gas. No, I'm not that dumb. I wonder if he did change his mind. The world may never know. Point is, he's now going into bio. 3rd CC is on the way. A 2nd factory comes down very quickly. Now, he's kind of putting all the things down at once, so it's not the absolute tightest build, perhaps, but he's keeping his money low. And he's going to have a lot of splash. It looks like he might be going that 2nd factory fast because he saw the roaches and is predicting a legitimate roach game from his opponent, not a, Ling Roach into Baneling into Hive. And he would be right if that's his prediction. They got a lot of roaches being built, an Overlord drop on the way, a Reynor only at 56 drones. He is going to go for another all-in. And GuMiHo had already read into this. Maybe the lack of drones from a Hellion scout a little bit earlier on, perhaps? I'm not sure, but that bunker was already being built. That's pretty clear that he knew something was on the way. Viking might have literally been just for this drop. Could he have literally predicted that there would be another drop all in? Possibly. But I really like it. This is brilliant defense. GuMiHo shouldn't die to this. He might take some damage to it, to be honest, but the damage might be limited to the 3rd CC. This is kind of akin to the build that... oh my god, I can't remember his name. That Rogue should do versus Maru. But this time, it's not Maru having the golden touch. It's GuMiHo having advanced notice, I think, of the way Reynor was playing today. And then just playing cautiously and really smart. No combat shields is making this Marine push out a wee bit dangerous. I don't know about that one. But the Banshees are taking care of the Roaches as the Queens were successfully deflected. Now they're brought to the forefront to help out against the Banshees, but no transfuse off of creep. They're weak. They're going to get target fired down. GuMiHo has held, including his 3rd CC. He did not even have to lift. So that's very bad news for Reynor. Very bad news. Excellent Excellent game here from GuMiHo.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the Overmind.
Thank you very much, Eminetix. So watch GuMiHo chase a little bit, but he does need to make sure his macro's already on the way. Combat shield's on the way, 2-2 now on the way. Has the double factory, so the tank count will never be in question. Smooth sailing, man. Reynor should not give up the game at this point, of course. There is a chance he can make a recovery. There's a chance that GuMiHo over dedicates to the aggression. You know, sieges up his tanks, refuses to leave, loses tanks, and then maybe it creates an opening for Reynor, but looks like GuMiHo has enough. He's got better upgrades at this point, too, although combat shield still isn't done. The tank count is so insane. Oh, my God. The Marines are already doing a good job ripping through the roaches, but having then all 5 tanks, now 4 tanks, is also pretty damn good. Drop is also hitting the 5th, though the Banshees are hitting the 5th, too. That is very close to dead. And Reynor is very close to dead. Probably dead. He's going down! Even reversing the supply would not put Reynor into a good position. I don't know if GuMiHo would have been so on guard if he did not have the ability to witness the last series. GG's. GG's. GuMiHo. On guard, on point, wins game number 1. And what could be the final game here on Persephone? In the top left it is GuMiHo, bottom left it is Reynor. Reynor might opt for more macro this time around. Seems like GuMiHo was really cautious of a potential all-in. He didn't overreact to nothing initially, which would have put him in a bad position, but he reacted at really the exact right time. The advance notice in the last series that Reynor was totally willing to all-in. The opener of GuMiHo's killing the 3rd hatch, perhaps encouraging Reynor to then all-in because he felt like he took too much damage. And I guess general confidence as well that you will win even if maybe you do read it incorrectly. Because you did kill the 3rd hatch, but also your macro TVZ is also pretty good. Perhaps all combined together to make that an easy defense and victory for GuMiHo. He's going to go for a low grounds build this time, but it is only the 1 barracks. We did see a 3 racks yesterday. That was fun. Not from GuMiHo, not this time. A more typical opener from Reynor as well. Hatch gas pool. GuMiHo wants to kill an overlord, but Reynor actually sent his overlords not directly across. Yeah, not so much. He definitely used one of them to look for a 2 racks. This is not a natural path for the overlord. So this was the first one, right? Yeah, so the first one, it's supposed to go across the map and then the Marine can kill it. We actually see that GuMiHo is not going to go for a Marine. Goes for a Reaper instead. And this just gives you a faster wall off on the ground, which is also nice to have. The SEV Scout, I think, is really well suited to the last hour of GSL, where Reynor has been cheesing and all-inning. And while this is actually a bit of a sacrifice in pro gaming terms, it's usually not for the rest of us, I think it's a very worthwhile sacrifice. The little bit of minerals you're missing from the SEV Scout, I think is very worth it. I also do like using the SEV Scout to then block the 3rd hatch. This is what Cure did versus Rogue on this map. And then Rogue had a lot of trouble defending against an 8 racks because the 3rd CC reinforcements to the 4th hatch, or 3rd it might have been, was so fast, and it was so difficult to hold. So it messes up the Zerg players early game. Reaper is going to do some micro shenanigans, nothing too big here. Natural command center's on the way. Overlord could actually get a scout, but there's no guarantee that a Marine wasn't built after Reaper. So it's got to play a little bit safe here. Could maybe just a little poke, little bit in. Could see the Howlings are on the way, but it's going to see it when they pop out anyway. And the hatchery is going to be taken finally. What, 150 minerals off. A 2nd Reaper is on the way. Oh, an armory is on the way as well. Okay. Interesting to add the second Reaper in, but just a little bit extra of that crowd control with the grenade. And, you know, a little bit better in the early game against Lings, too. And then, you know, 1 or 2 extra Marines. I like it. I don't think Reynor's prepared for this. He's the one that's been aggressive. Not many Terran players are willing to throw out a 2-base armory build nowadays. He has not gotten any scouting, except for the Hellions appearing. I don't even think he saw the second Reaper, which I'm not sure he'd read into that. This could be very, very difficult for him to hold. No Roachworn, not a whole lot of Lings. Queens are on the front line. Obviously, he sees it now. It's not that many units, and Queen Ling can defend this. It's about trying to trade out efficiently, though, for GuMiHo. And the Queens... Basically, if the Queens aren't just caught off guard, like one Queen gets killed because she was off creep spreading, and the rest are late to the party, Hellbat attacks are not that helpful in a TVZ. And this was one of the reasons we did stop seeing it. But I don't mind it at all. I do think it was a failure, but I think GuMiHo's okay with it. He's going to go into 3CC, and he's going to go into Mech. We got +1 plating already on the way, which is an interesting choice, by the way. +1 plating. I don't think I've seen this. Almost everyone agrees that attack is better, whether you're going bio or Mech, actually. But GuMiHo disagrees. He's going to go for plating. Oh, you may go into Battle Mech. No, I do actually kind of remember that. Battle Mech actually does go +1 plating. I do remember that now. Okay. All right, fair enough. The lock-on ability of the Cyclone not benefiting from the attack, but being an overall fragile unit kind of moved the preference over a little bit. I totally forgot about that, though, honestly. It's been a while. We did see Battle Mech, I think, from Cure as well. Or no, from Beyond, that's what it was. Beyond brought it out, but it was... He didn't go for this fast of an upgrade anyway, and he won basically before he got to upgrades, so it didn't matter. Definitely a factor. He's coming down here, and I don't think Reynor quite knows it. Oh, he did see it. He did see it. My bad. He saw it was something. It is GuMiHo, so that's always a possibility, and it was a Hellbat opener, which it absolutely does not guarantee that it's Mech, but maybe with GuMiHo, it kind of maybe nods towards it. But good scout confirms that. 3rd CC now floating on over before it's an orbital. Raven is on the way, so we're going to include the Raven with the mobile army and start clearing up all this creep spread. This is a very fast upgrade, by the way. You're finishing vehicle plating level 1 at 6 minutes. Nah. Cyclone upgrade on the way, +2 plating immediately. Reynor trying to get to a 4th base. Definitely should not do any type of all-in. Well, he could mass Roach, I suppose. Mass Roach Ravager attack GuMiHo, sure. But definitely nothing other than that. And he's going to need mass Roach anyway just to handle the incoming Battle Mech. He should know it's Battle Mech too, not Tank Mech. +1 missiles on the way, but it's so late. Oh my god. It's timed out with the +2 plating of GuMiHo. That's crazy. Keep spread is looking good, but I wonder how long it's going to last with the Raven. Stupid. And the Raven's right there. $73 drones for Reynor is a good position to be in. Definitely needs a few more. Infantry ship on the way. Once upon a time, you could handle Battle Mech with Fungals. That was phased out in favor of handling it with Vipers, actually. And then we basically saw Battle Mech fall off the face of the earth after that. And only coming in every once in a while. With the Cyclone change, I guess it came back for a little bit. It was so prevalent in 2020. It looks like it was going to be the thing, and then it wasn't. Katowice happened, and everyone was like, oh, never mind, I don't want to do it anymore. It was very odd. Swarm Hosts! Wow, I did not think at all about Swarm Hosts. That is a unit that exists in StarCraft, you guys. And it is a unit you do get against Mech. But yeah, Swarm Host. Okay, to be fair, I still would say this is not the most common response that I remember. Against Battle Mech, it is a response. Just... yeah, a lot of the times we'd see a lot of mass Roach Ravager. Ling's trying to get surrounds, and then some type of spellcaster to handle the ground army. But Swarm Hosts are going to be coming out, giving you a lot of cost efficiency, ideally. Anyway, it also can provide a little bit of that aggression on their side of the map thanks to the Nidus Swarm accompanying it. The Roach Ravager handles the defense and stops GuMiHo from simply pushing in. It's a little more complicated here. The Swarm Hosts go and do their thing over on their side of the map onto their production. 4th Command Center is on the way. +3 plating is on the way at the same time as +2 missile. Swarm Hosts have now been revealed. GuMiHo did not get any sight in that previously. Unfortunately, the Locusts aren't going to be very effective right now. Blue Flame is not quite done. So as they do find some of the army, it's a little better. He's going to get Cloak for his Banshees? He got that before he saw the Swarm Host. Interesting decision. But now he could go into Banshees. He could even go into Banshee Speed, and I would not mind it whatsoever. Obviously, a lack of anti-air here with Roach Swarm Host. But then the Banshees can patrol around common Nidus Worm points, force them to put Nidus Worms farther and farther away, unless they lose it or even lose a Swarm Host or two. And then that just at least gives you a heads up as well. I don't mind it. I kind of like doing it, but I'm also not very good. I feel like I've seen GuMiHo do it before versus Swarm Host too, but he's not... Oh, he is doing it today! Nice. Nailed it. Analysis. And also, this plating is helping against the Swarm Host a lot, by the way. Swarm Host distracts. Ling Roach hits the 3rd. Good response from GuMiHo, though. Very quick pull away. Only loses 4 SCVs. Very nicely done. Barracks providing a little bit of scout as well. Spire is on the way. So we're not going to have GuMiHo controlling the skies for very long. Trying to split up his army a little. Missing some of the micro on either side. That Nidus Worm was ambitious. Pinwheels might be on the way, but still not that many Banshees. Finally, an attack upgrade. Eventually, you do move off of Battle Mech. You do include a couple of tanks. It's just a good thing to do. Even a couple of tanks anchoring a push like this could be very helpful. But it is currently pure Hellion. Oh my god, Hellion Cyclone. Little split, little bio split there as Reynor tried to collapse in with his Banelings, forced to withdraw, forced to bring back his Swarm Host to help out, but there's still a good number of Hellbats tanking the Locusts, that's the word, and then letting those Cyclones run away from it so that they can jump back on the Roaches. Swarm Host have to wait a little while longer for another Locust Swarm. Reynor is maxed out, but keep in mind how much supply Swarm Hosts take up. It's otherwise not a very strong army, and just a couple of Hellbats at this point are necessary. Literally just like 2 Hellbats are what's necessary here to help out against the Lings trying to flood him. You'll need more as the Swarm Hosts appear, and that is why GuMiHo is building 7 Hellions at a time. Nidus Worms not getting up on the offensive. Reynor Swarm Host, so far a bit of a dud. They got one opportunity to distract, and GuMiHo was so quick with his response. Didn't really do anything. Greater Spire is on the way, desperately trying to get to the Broodlords, finally finding an opportunity for a bit of a surround. Those reinforcing Hellbats not quite here yet, but more reinforcements on the way regardless. And that is just too much mech to handle alongside the Speed Banshees without any Corruptors on the field. He wants to get to Broodlords, but he hadn't had the supply to build the Corruptors. He now has the ability to do that. He needs the supply, though. He needs to get rid of supply. And Broodlords would be helpful right now. They're going to have a bit of a mobility issue, sure. But Cyclones do not want to tango directly with the Broodlords, providing Reynor a possible avenue of, more cost-efficient defense, but then also perhaps an attack. You push this Cyclone army back with your Broodlords, and then you're just a little bit of a hop away from the 3rd CC. But it looks like Reynor just isn't confident in his ability to get there yet. He's got the technology, he does not have the units. And the Swarm Hosts are just taking up so much supply without doing really anything. 9 Queens as well, honestly. Maybe not the most helpful. Cyclone army has split up a little bit, and Reynor is struggling to get good connections. The Banelings are just not hitting particularly efficiently. We have ship weapons on the way for GuMiHo. He's preparing to deal with potential Broodlords. He knows that could be an endgame option. He still hasn't seen anything near it, though. And now I think he just took a perhaps game-winning fight. The supplies look similar, but they really aren't. Banelings do end up connecting with some Cyclones, but there's still so many more. Hatchery goes down as GuMiHo takes his 5th and 6th almost at the same time. Reynor is running out of options. His consistent supply off the back of the Swarm Host has kept him alive and has even allowed him a bit of a bank because he hasn't had to replace them. But he has had to replace a lot of Roach Ravager. Oh my god, the resources lost. That is twice the resources lost for Reynor. He needs so many more bases, and he only has his original 4. He is also now supply blocked. He does not have an answer to the Banshee, as the Corruptors are still only just now making their way out. This feels very bad for Reynor. GuMiHo does have a little damage taken on his 3rd, but still, again, not much. Quick pull away on the SCVs. 2 more starports are on the way as GuMiHo is like, this is the only option you have, right? You clearly are going to go for Broodlords. And the Broodlords are going to stop the Cyclones being able to push in, but they can't, they're just not mobile enough. I mean, they're more mobile than they ever were before, but they're just not that mobile. They can't help take this base and this base. And then pushing any farther, getting these bases, this one and this one, is so difficult. The Terran army is fairly mobile despite being mech. And it doesn't need a lot of mobility on this kind of thinner map, where the mech player has also been able to expand towards your potential expansions. So now it's just a little hop away from defending their base, attacking yours. It's a very difficult situation as the Zerg continues playing out the game. It gets harder and harder. Maybe you can get to a better Zerg army, though, and force GuMiHo to take a chill pill. And, oh my god, he's going battle cruisers. Oh my god. And then that gives you some time to recover. But it doesn't seem like this is going to be the case. Only 4 Broodlords. I mean, the Cyclones actually might have a chance, although Fungals are also available. So probably not the way to go. Nope, I don't know about that one. Yeah, I mean, I said it. I thought it. I'm glad I didn't play it because I would have made the same mistake. But that is why he didn't want to do that. He did just lose a lot of units right there. And he did not kill the Broodlords. But yeah, we are getting that momentary reprieve. Reynor, gets that connection with the army, which is good. But he also, unbeknownst to him, is getting time because there are battle cruisers on the way. And they take a long time to build and a lot of supply. So GuMiHo, in a certain sense, wanted to give away that supply anyway. But I don't know if exactly like that is the case. GuMiHo, well on his way to victory at this point. Reynor taking the time to double expand, try and get his economy back up. Must know that something way worse is going to come out. And he might be thinking 24 Vikings. But he's about to see the battle cruisers. There it is. There it is. Now, it looks like he actually predicted battle cruisers. Because I don't think you'd... Neuroparasite can sometimes be a upgrade that you get because you're kind of rich and it could be helpful. But I think in this scenario, Reynor is not very rich. I think getting it might have been a prediction of the battlecruiser. This way you can steal it and guarantee its kill. GuMiHo doesn't only have battlecruisers, though. He still has a fairly fearsome ground army that is currently targeting the Roachmorn. Goodbye, Roachmorn. I don't know if Reynor's going to remember to rebuild that. Ling's going into the 3rd and natural. I mean, they're getting something done. This is the most I think they've done. The Swarm Hosts in total killed 8 SCVs. The Lings killed 17. GuMiHo has these other 2 bases properly protected as planetaries as well, though no building armor. They've never been attacked, or very lightly attacked. Roachborn is being rebuilt. More Infestors on the way, trying to get to that perfect late-game Zerg army. Broodlord Infestor, baby. Back to our origins. Of course, it's played out very differently nowadays. Well, that might not be the best teleport. Yeah, no parasite, no parasite, no parasite. He's gone. That's done. Oh my god. I think it wasn't done when he tried to click it, and so he stopped trying to click it. Well, he also needed some energy to fungal the incoming ground army, but I think that's it for the Infestors. That is it for the Infestors. That is why GuMiHo so courageously teleported in. He was going to be backed up by the ground army anyway. He got rid of most of the air, the Broodlords specifically, and now the ground army can have a little fun. One more fungal did get thrown out, but did not kill a terrible amount of units. GuMiHo does fall down in supply, and he's not incredibly rich in the bank, but he is still richer than Reynor. Unfortunately, Reynor might have been able to get a gotcha on Maru. GuMiHo comes out with the tricks and wins 2-0. GG's. GuMiHo and Classic advance into the round of 4. GG's.